3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
From the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212 4CBS is number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We have a full house today. The regular crew rocking and rolling all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. We got Moist Mike. We have a very tan Stuart Kovacs. And also Clay Harbor is going to be joining us in studio today, the former NFL tight end, at the top of the hour. We have 2 games of March Madness already in the books on this opening round Thursday. Duquesne just upset BYU. And if you listen closely, you could hear my bracket already going into the paper shredder because I had BYU going to the Sweet 16. And Tom Izzo, this time of the year, he knows how to win. He found a way to blow out Mississippi State today, where that game was off to a very strong start for the Sparty Party. Then it got close at halftime. And then Michigan State did a phenomenal job in the second half as Michigan State defeated Mississippi State by a score of 69-51. Other games in play right now. Creighton had a first half scare, but now they are pulling away from Akron. 11:55 to go. Creighton up 59-44 over Akron. Arizona at the half up 41-35 against Long Beach State. 116 game right now. North Carolina and Wagner. That's all tied up at 13 with 13:20 to go. So we will have an eye on all the college basketball games throughout the day. We'll keep you updated, and we'll tell you as all the mayhem and the madness does unfold. I'll quickly just give you my Sweet 16. Not that it really means anything because, I'm actually optimistic this year, even though I already lost the Sweet 16 team already. Because every year on the first day of the tournament, I'll get like 13 or 14 picks right out of like the 16 games, whatever it is. And I'll go, man, this is going to be my year I win the bracket. So far since I picked against Michigan State and I picked against Duquesne, maybe I want to start off slow. It doesn't matter how you start. It matters how you finish. That's going to be the philosophy of this NCAA tournament. My Sweet 16 this year, I have UConn, I have Auburn, I have BYU. They're donezo. And Iowa State, with UConn going up against Iowa State, UConn advancing to the Final Four. North Carolina, I have Grand Canyon as a 12 seed, Baylor and Arizona, UNC against Arizona with Caleb Love getting redemption, Arizona going to the Final Four. When we get to the South, I have Houston, the Dukies, Kentucky, and Marquette. Houston going up against Kentucky, Kentucky going to the Final Four. And then I have Purdue, Gonzaga, Creighton, and Tennessee. Gonzaga going up against Creighton, Creighton going to the Final Four. UConn defeating Arizona, Kentucky defeating Creighton, UConn and Kentucky in the championship game with Danny Hurley's squad going back-to-back. So that's a little March Madness flavor. We'll keep you up to date all throughout the day right here on the Zach Gelb Show. We have to start where we ended the show yesterday. And yesterday, right in the final segment of the show, we got this story of Shohei Ohtani being associated with some gambling scandal that involved his interpreter, who has now since been fired. There was a report out there that there is an opt-out clause in Ohtani's contract that if his interpreter gets fired and some other people in the organization as well, he could opt out. Ben Verlander said that is not true on the interpreter part, nor would he opt out even if they fired one of his best friends, who ironically is his interpreter. So there's a lot of speculation going on right now. The two big questions that I had yesterday was, well, what was the interpreter or Ohtani gambling on? And then also, was the money stolen, or was this just Ohtani being a good friend? So that's how we'll set things up. All we know right now is that Shohei Ohtani, from his account, had 2 wired payments of $500,000 each, totaling $1 million. See, that's why I took one math class at Temple University. And they went to this offshore bookie, is the better way of putting it. Now, yesterday, and ESPN did a deep dive into this. They put out a very good article. At first, the report coming from the interpreter was, I have a gambling problem. I'm addicted to gambling. And I was sports gambling in a bunch of sports which were not Major League Baseball. They were not Major League Baseball. That was made clear. And Shohei Ohtani wasn't happy with me. He found out about this, but because we're so close and practically best friends, he offered to pay off my debts. That was the first story. And then the interpreter or Ohtani's camp retracted that story and said that isn't true, and Shohei Ohtani is actually a victim, and this money was stolen. So let's start there. But before we start there, I find it laughable today that Major League Baseball isn't already investigating this. But even though I find it laughable, I can't say I'm surprised. I can't say my jaw is hitting the floor, because this is the incompetent regime of my dear friend and a man that loves me so much. And I know he can't stand my guts, in Rob Manfred. Because during the pandemic, I was very annoyed with Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball. And a lot of time I was spent in my basement on a national radio show because we weren't allowed in the studios. And I was in shorts and a T-shirt. Some days I was in T-shirt and boxers because I was not on camera then. And I called Rob Manfred every name in the book because I was annoyed that he was spitting in the faces and he was allowing us to be just spat on by the owners who were all crying poverty during the pandemic when most of them are billionaires. So it got back to me that Rob Manfred was familiar with my work and the commissioner is not a fan of yours truly. But that does not make me incapable of giving Rob Manfred a compliment when it's deserving. Like, for example, the pitch clock, I have given Rob Manfred his words of extolment for implementing the pitch clock. But outside of that, everything I've usually said about Rob Manfred has been true. And this dude may be a good negotiator, which I didn't really see that during the pandemic, but that's his kind of reputation. He's great in negotiation worlds and legal and all that stuff. But when it comes to crisis, or even when it comes to public speaking, Rob Manfred just finds a way to stumble all over himself, drool all over himself, and just make himself look like a buffoon. So when we're looking for leadership today for Major League Baseball, when there's all these things that are being accused of the game's best player right now and the most recognizable player, what is Major League Baseball doing? Well, even though Shohei Ohtani played in a game today, and after the game there were reporters right outside of his locker, and there was Dodgers representatives from their PR staff that said he will not be talking today, and basically all Ohtani said was, "Have a good day, everybody." Major League Baseball right now is waiting for reactions, and they're not being proactive. And the reaction right now is accusing Ohtani of a lot, whether it's true or false, and whether it's assumptions or facts, that's a totally different story. But you have, in some way, your biggest star associated with a gambling scandal. And whether he gambled or not, and there's no evidence that he did right now, is irrelevant. Because this is a sport that still will not allow Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame when he was a manager and he was gambling. So there has been many stories and there's been a lot of conversations throughout the years regarding gambling in Major League Baseball. And here you have this incompetent, dopey, bozo, buffoon of a commissioner who's basically saying, nothing to see here right now. This doesn't have anything to do with us. And Major League Baseball, as of now, is not investigating Shohei Ohtani. I'm not saying have a rush to judgment. I'm not saying throw the book at Shohei Ohtani right now. I'm not saying suspend him. I'm not saying drop the hammer on Shohei Ohtani. But Rob Manfred, can we do a little due diligence here? Can we start an investigation? And can we start looking into this matter instead of sitting on your hands in your comfy office and probably just watching the March Madness NCAA tournament today? This is the biggest name in the sport. This is the biggest attraction in the sport of Shohei Ohtani. He is the game's most popular player. And this buffoon of a commissioner is basically saying, when everyone else is reacting to it, yeah, there's nothing to see here right now. So there's no reason for us to investigate. So let's get into some of the talking points of this scenario. As I've made it clear, Major League Baseball, bare minimum, at least needs to pretend like they care in case that this story does make a turn for the worse. With how juicy this story came off yesterday, I don't think it is as juicy as it is being reported today. Now, there's some things that could change that, and I'm looking at this from a sports standpoint, not a litigious standpoint. When the feds are involved, that's still a juicy story, and that could still go wrong in a legal matter. But I'm talking about when it comes to Shohei Ohtani being on the field or not. Here's the biggest question. Did anyone gamble, whether it was Ohtani's interpreter or was it Ohtani? did anyone gamble on Major League Baseball? And what we were told from the guy that was running the sports book, or the offshore sports book, and then also Ohtani's interpreter, who said he knew the rule. He knows you could bet on other sports. You just can't bet on Major League Baseball. And his bets were on international soccer, the NBA, the NFL, and college football. So when it just pertains to me being a baseball fan, me not being a legal expert, because I would never pretend to be one, or the seriousness of that issue and lawsuits and jail time and all those things. I'm saying just from being a baseball fan, if Ohtani or the interpreter were not gambling on baseball, this story loses a lot of momentum and steam for your boy. Now, here's the other part. And this is the part that doesn't really add up. Why did the interpreter, who was very honest and spoke to people, why was his initial story that I have a gambling problem, I racked up a ton of debt, Ohtani found out about it, and he was not happy, and since he was a loyal friend, he offered to pay off the debt, and then I promised to him that we would never be in this situation again. If that was the case, now there could be some legal things involved in that, but if that's the case, I think most human beings, when it pertained to a baseball perspective, would just be, okay, I respect Shohei Ohtani for being a good friend and helping out his interpreter, who he's become extremely close with. But that wasn't the end of the story, because then the Ohtani camp comes out swinging to ESPN, and they go, that's not true. The interpreter, allegedly, was stealing money from Shohei Ohtani, and Shohei Ohtani knew nothing about this. Now, in the Major League Baseball world, you could gamble. You can't gamble on Major League Baseball, but you have to make sure that you're legally gambling. So you can't be going to an offshore sports book or sending money that way and gambling that way. So there's still something there. But if that first part of the story was just true, and I don't know if it is or isn't, that Ohtani was just helping out his friend who racked up a ton of debt, once again, it's a non-story. But since the camp now has switched sides here and are painting Ohtani to be the victim here, and the interpreter stole money from him, now I'm starting to say the Ohtani camp doesn't even have their story straight, and this isn't adding up, and it allows us to just ask the question, well, was the interpreter the fall guy, and did Shohei Ohtani ever gamble? And was he involved in any of the gambling? And once again, it goes back to, if you can't believe one part of the story, then why should I believe the part of the story that they weren't gambling on baseball? Now, I maybe I'm naive here. I'm going to believe that they weren't gambling on baseball. But I can't definitively say that Ohtani wasn't gambling. Now, I will acknowledge that I guess the guy who was running the offshore sports book, he gave a quote that said, I've never met Shohei Ohtani. I never talked to Shohei Ohtani. There were accusations that he was using Ohtani's name to help his business because he was getting money from Shohei Ohtani, so he kind of played into that. But supposedly this was just the interpreter. I could sit here, and when I just kind of read the situation from afar, my brain doesn't make me think that they were gambling on baseball. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I don't know who was gambling. That's the thing. I don't know if it was the interpreter. I don't know if it was Ohtani. And maybe it was a mixture of both. But that's going to be a question that we need answered. And if you can't trust someone on that, then it does make other things difficult to trust people on. But here we go for the Dodgers. 2 games into the season, and the Los Angeles Dodgers are now embroiled in a gambling scandal, and Major League Baseball is involved in a gambling scandal that involves the biggest player and the biggest name and the biggest star in the sport. Once again, as long as Ohtani isn't gambling on baseball and the interpreter wasn't gambling on baseball, from a baseball perspective, I don't think there is going to be enough to really force a punitive action that's serious to Shohei Ohtani. Like if Ohtani has a gambling problem, and I say that if, and let's say he was gambling, but he was gambling on things that weren't baseball, then it is what it is, and hey, feds are involved, and there's things that can go down. But when it comes to will Ohtani be on the field or not for the rest of the season, the biggest question as far as Major League Baseball should be concerned is if he gambled on Major League Baseball games. And from what we've read and seen so far, whether you believe it or not, I'm going to believe that they have not, whether it was the interpreter or Ohtani, gambled on Major League Baseball games. But either way, Samter, it is kind of laughable to me still. When we could speculate and we could talk about things, but still Major League Baseball has not been feeling the heat yet, and there's been a lot of it where they have to say, okay, maybe we should just start a preliminary investigation, which is just crazy to me.
And even if it's like a sham investigation, kind of like what the NFL did with Ray Rice. At least pretend
like you care.
Yeah, like what the NFL did with Ray Rice. Now, the problem with that is if things come out that that MLB did not uncover because they weren't fully looking into it because they didn't want to besmirch their biggest star internationally, and then something comes out after the fact, then there's the cover-up is worse than the crime. The way I look at it, the MLB needs to go out there, investigate, and even if they don't find anything like a smoking gun, you gotta give like a significant suspension, 20 games. Like not like half the year, 20-game suspension. We mean business, but it's still a small portion of the season, 30 games, something like that.
Well, could Major League Baseball offer immunity to Shohei Ohtani for speaking the truth, just like what they offered to all the Astros players, which led the Astros players off the hook?
Because the Astros players were ratting on other people. Yes, Ohtani would be ratting on himself, so no. But that would be interesting. The reality is they have to do something, right? They have to, whether it's an investigation or they have to suspend Ohtani because whatever it was that he did, whether he was the one gambling, whether it was on baseball or not, whether he was just helping a friend or whether he was stolen from, either way, there is the appearance of impropriety. And that is what baseball has to, and that's what all sports have to avoid, is the appearance of impropriety. Yeah. So no matter what you believe may or may not have happened, there's at least enough of a connection that he paid directly to an illegal bookie in a state that does not allow for illegal bookies that he has to get punished. And if he doesn't get punished, then Rob Manfred has to be out.
And personally, I don't care about that part of the story. That's just my difference of opinion with you here. I know legally that could become a big deal, and there could be punishments and other things as well. I don't care that Ohtani is paying for the interpreter. I don't. Even if it's to this offshore sports book. All I care about was Ohtani gambling? And if the answer is no, then was the interpreter or Ohtani, if the answer is yes, that Ohtani was gambling on Major League Baseball? On the surface, that is all I care about in regards to this story. Because if Ohtani or the interpreter was gambling on baseball, and it would have been smart to bet a lot against the Angels the last few years, that becomes the biggest fear turning into reality that every commissioner has when they accept all this money from gambling sites to help out their sport. All right, this is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. If you want to react to the Shohei Ohtani scandal, I guess we could say, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. When we come on back, we got some teams under pressure for this NCAA tournament.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. The real start of the NCAA tournament underway. No offense to anyone that was in the play-in part, the first four, but this is the first actual day of the NCAA tournament. Let me ask you guys, because you guys get here a little bit earlier than I do. Stu also works on the Jim Rome show, and Samter's just a very diligent producer, and he always likes to be prepared. So the company ordered a copious amount of pizza today, I was told, and they were serving that pizza at noon Eastern time. Now, I strolled into the office today like 1 o'clock, and I thought to myself, maybe there'll be a few slices left. I know the other day when they brought in like 10 burgers and chicken sandwiches from Shake Shack, that went away in 5 minutes. And yeah, Stu, you missed this one.
Wow.
The Shake Shack was offered to Samter. Samter goes, I don't know what Zach wants, so just put it in the newsroom. Zach will go get whatever he wants during the break. I go out in the break to the newsroom. There's no chicken sandwiches. There's no burgers. There's no French fries. There's nothing. Not that I wanted to have it anyway, but it is what it is.
Just for the record, also, like the time that they offered the food and put it out into the newsroom, and the
less
time
than 5 minutes.
Less than 5 minutes. Usually, food goes quickly, but not that quickly. They were vultures.
It was crazy.
Around. It was crazy.
It was like you had a hungry pack of wolves that haven't had anything to eat in 3 days, and you just threw like a piece of steak. It was gone instantly. So when they said they were getting so much pizza, I thought to myself, all right, like probably 20 pies. And when you say you're bringing in food, there's probably going to be more people coming into the office, and some of the people that usually stay at home will end up popping into the office. Like, there's people today in this office. I'm here every day. In football season, I'm here 6 days a week, all right? And now in the non-football season, 5 days a week. I have never seen so many people in the newsroom today over a few slices of pizza that were getting brought out. So I go into the area where they're serving the pizza at 1 o'clock. No pizza to be found. Actually, the 25 boxes that they ordered were all lined up next to the trash, stacked one after another, and two separate columns of it so they could get thrown out. So did you get any pizza? Because you were here at noon Eastern.
I did. I went during the first break of the Jim Rome show, so around like 12:15 Eastern time, 12:20, and then it was already like halfway gone. There
What
was
kind
a
of
line
pizza
like
did
20
you get?
deep. Plain. They had plain pepperoni and vegetarian.
Okay, gotcha. And Samter, let me ask you, what kind of pizza did you get, if you got any pizza at all? Because, I don't know, you looked a little hungry today when I saw you.
So I was on the phone talking to somebody, so I didn't actually hear what your question was.
Well, okay, what did you get any of the pizza today?
Of course not.
You weren't here like at 12:30?
I was here like 12:15.
And by then, the pizza was already gone? The pizza was put out at 12.
I didn't see any pizza. Where was the pizza to?
No.
It's in the back.
Well, you don't get your company emails then.
It was in the back. So I walk in here and I put my head down. I go to my computer and I get my work done. If the pizza's not right here on one of the desks right in front of me, I don't know about it.
Okay, so Santa's not very active. He doesn't walk at all.
And there was also, I didn't get an email announcing the pizza. Usually they'll put a whole email out there. I didn't get an email announcing pizza.
Well, maybe then the person that was organizing this, who is a very nice person, or also was the same person that brought you the Shake Shack the other day.
Oh, no, I have
She
the
sent
email.
the email.
No,
yeah,
I
you're
have
lazy.
the email.
You don't pay attention. You think?
Well, I didn't read the subject. I just saw it said something about March Madness viewing party. So I was like, I'm not going to go view March Madness. I have TVs here.
Oh,
I'll be
God
watching
forbid.
my phone.
God forbid you should be a company guy. Come on. I'm just saying. You got to read the email. If I read the email, you should read the email. Like yesterday, Spike sends us out an email to a bunch of the talent. And they go, can you fill out this brief questionnaire about March Madness? Here's the link. The email was out there for 6 hours. I read the email. There was no link. So I respond to Spike. And I go, would be helpful if you actually included the link in the email. And Spike responds back. He goes, kind of crazy that this email was out for 6 hours and Zach was the only one out of the 15 people that were on the email asking us to do something that took literally 4 seconds to fill out, or maybe 5 at most. You know, a bunch of like click options that I was the only one that realized that there was no link in the email. But anyway, the one thing I was going to say, and Stu, you could answer because you were being a good company guy. You were also focusing on your stomach. Look at Stu, right back from vacation, right into the free pizza
Already
as well.
taking the pizza.
Did they have garlic knots?
They did not. At least that I saw. I didn't see any garlic knots.
See, that's a bad job. Because if you're ordering pizza for a group setting, I think you also have to order a group setting worth of garlic knots. I think it goes together, like Shaq and Kobe, right? You know, whatever duo you want to, Montana and Rice, pizza and garlic knots. I just need it to have happen.
Interesting.
Why, you don't? I'm only saying for a group setting.
I mean, I enjoy garlic knots, but I would say the percentage of times that I get garlic knots when I get pizza is about 5%. 95% of the time that I get pizza, there is no garlic knots with it. So I don't associate garlic knots with pizza at all.
Group setting only.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying when you go to your local pizza joint and you're going around the Samter Snob and the pizza tour and all that, like getting 2 slices. In a group setting, you have to order garlic knots. That's my take of the day. Anyway, right now, Creighton 75, Akron 60, Arizona 62, Long Beach State 41, UNC 40, Wagner 26. Don't worry, Ak. I'm going to do 5 more minutes, and we'll get to your update, and you'll update us on all the scores.
The scores are the whole part of the update.
I know. And then, by the way, did you hear Duquesne today won 71-67 over BYU, and Michigan State 69-51 over Mississippi State?
I missed those.
Oh, okay. Well, you get to it in Ak's award-winning update coming up in about 3.5 minutes or so from now. But
it's just a pet peeve. I apologize because everybody does it right before the.
It's fine. I have known you for basically my entire life.
No, and with all due respect, I love the man. Rome does it as well. Everybody I've ever worked with does that. I'm like, why do people do that right before the update? You want to do it like later.
Okay. All I am going to say, the views of Richard Ackerman with the name that he just mentioned do not reflect the views of the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
I just grouped in everybody. That's all.
Jim, I understand you are the franchise of this network. Yeah. Jim, I would never take a shot at you, and I am the biggest Jim Rome fan on the planet.
I didn't take a shot at him. I just included him in that group. So,
anyway, as we enter the NCAA tournament, Purdue is by far and away the team under the most pressure. After losing last year as to a 16 seed in Fairleigh Dickinson with Tobin Anderson at the time, and they were a 1 seed, is disgraceful. And they've had other shortcomings in the NCAA tournament. Here they are a year later, and I don't think it helps them when Virginia was a 1 and they lost to UMBC as a 16, that the following year Virginia did win it all. Purdue, bare minimum, has to get to a Final Four. If they don't get to a Final Four, a lot of people are going to be slamming the Boilermakers. And I think a lot of the attention and pressure is on Matt Painter. But really, I think more of the pressure also needs to be placed on Zach Edey. Because I do find it, I don't know, just intriguing, interesting, that you have guys like Jay Will that have been saying on ESPN, Caitlin Clark can't be considered a GOAT or a great player until she wins a championship. And then you have Zach Edey, who may be the most recognizable player in this tournament just because of his size. And oh, yeah, by the way, he's the reigning National Player of the Year, and he's probably going to have that in back-to-back seasons, was unanimous first-team All-American once again. Zach Edey needs to get Purdue to a Final Four. And not only that, you look at their Midwest region, Purdue has question marks. Tennessee, even though I love Dalton Connect, Rick Barnes has question marks. Kansas is without their leading scorer for the entire tournament. Creighton is up, but Creighton, even last year when they went on a run, it had a disappointing end with them going down to San Diego State. So this is a wide open region and a wide open part of the bracket. Purdue needs to get to a Final Four. Other schools that are under pressure, I think Kentucky is under pressure. You know, there's been a love-hate relationship with Kentucky this year. Some weeks, wow, they're poised to go make a Final Four run. Other weeks, what the heck is going on with John Calipari going into this tournament, especially with the way that Reed Shepherd has played and has played recently? There is a big buzz with Kentucky. And you have a lot of pundits in the media, a lot of fans picking Kentucky to go to the Final Four. I have them going to the Final Four. I think Ack just raised his hand. He has them going to the Final Four. Stu, do you have Kentucky going to the Final Four?
Stu? I have them going to the Elite Eight.
Elite Eight.
So pretty far, yeah.
So you still have them going on a decent run. I have them going all the way to the national championship game, and I hate it already because I think everyone has UConn and Kentucky in the national championship game, Ack included. So do I. I have UConn winning it all. Ack, who do you have winning it all?
Kentucky.
Oh, so you're going with Kentucky.
I just said I'm going out there. I'm putting myself out there. I'm going with it for a variety of reasons. Mm-hmm. Number one, I think everybody else is taking UConn or Purdue or North Carolina or Arizona. And look, Kentucky is just like UConn a year ago, where UConn had some early tournament disappointments in previous years, and if they just get going, they could do some damage. Now, there's a lot to like about them.
More expected on this Kentucky team, though, than UConn last year.
There's a lot to like about them, and there's a lot to dislike about them, as you said. But the fact remains, if the light flips on, they have an enormous amount of talent.
And then the other two schools that I think have a good amount of pressure on them, and I'll stay in that South region, Marquette. You know, it's been a while for Shaka Smart. I know he's done a nice job at Marquette, coming over from Texas, but we've now had a bunch of years since the great VCU run with the Havoc and that great run that they did have to the Final Four. But now it looks like he's getting Kolek back for this game, which is enormous. Marquette disappointed last year. They got to go make a deep run in this tourney, and Tennessee too. If Tennessee's going to get to their first ever Final Four, it's got to be this year. We already talked about that Midwest region with all the uncertainty, but you will now have a superstar in an All-American first-teamer in Dalton Connect, who joined us early in the week, who started out junior college, then transferred to a school in Colorado, lower-level school, and then found his way to Tennessee. And in year one, SEC Player of the Year, first-team All-American, and is on the verge of being a top 15 pick in this upcoming summer's NBA draft. Now, one school that I did not talk about, and I'll throw this to Ack. Now, UConn, like you just said, everyone is picking them, or most people are picking them. The overwhelming majority are picking them to win it all. Is there pressure on UConn when everyone's picking you, or is it, okay, you won the championship last year. If you just have a good showing this year, like Elite Eight, Final Four, bare minimum, you're not going to get slammed if you lose?
I think it's got to be at least a Final Four. I mean, this is a team, they might be better. The one thing that I think goes against them this year, where if you wanted to cut them a little slack, they had more guys that were in their program for longer last year, such as Andre Jackson, like those types of guys that ultimately left. But look, Cam Spencer is playing his 5th year of college ball, his first at UConn. You do have an All-American in the starting 5. You do have Donovan Clingan, who's going to be a high pick. So there's a lot to like there. But again, that team last year, I think there was more people that grew as time went on. I don't think that it's quite the same bunch, but they are uber talented, if not more so than last year.
I think they're a better team this year. There's obviously higher expectations going into this tourney than last year. And not only that, they remind me a lot of I'm not talking about style of play, but the Villanova team that won the second national championship under Jay Wright, where some people looked at their draw.
You mean the second under Jay Wright as opposed to the second overall?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because, they won 3 at Villanova with Rolly Massimino. We don't have to relive all the history and all of that when Bob Gelb, my father, was producing Rolly Massimino's radio show. Yeah, no, that's fine. When Jay Wright won his second national championship, because that Villanova team blew out everybody on their way to the Final Four and then winning the national championship game. For me, with UConn, I think they could blow out everybody, even with the tough draw, because out of all the number 1 seeds, they have the toughest road in that East region.
Yeah, I think the one thing that also helps UConn in this scenario is winning last year, I think, was a big weight lifted for Dan Hurley. I don't want to say he's more relaxed now, but there's that tightness.
Because he's still a maniac.
But yeah, I mean, you can get that tightness because you want something so badly, and when you've finally done it, you still want it again. But it's not like a life or death thing.
Yeah.
It's just there's a different, and maybe that's a wrong way of putting it, but I do think there's a certain weight that's lifted, and you can go a little more free and easy, if you will.
We'll talk a little bit about the Chicago Bears when we come on back and the locker room dynamic that will happen with Justin Fields out and inevitably Caleb Williams coming in. Former NFL tight end does a bunch of work in the Chicago area now. Clay Harbor is going to join us in 20 minutes in studio. But first up, I think enough time has elapsed where maybe Ack will issue a mea culpa for giving the scores about 7 or 8 minutes ago. But here he is standing by with his award-winning update, getting you set and prepared for everything that's going to happen today in March Madness. Here he is, the great, and I mean great, Richard Ackerman.
Sports Flag.
Wrong? I'm not wrong. I may not always be right, but I'm never wrong. I can tell you that. This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save nearly $750 on average. Call or click today to find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. Opening day, or at least the first full day of the tournament, and we already have an upset as Duquesne, making its first appearance since 1977, ousts BYU 71-67. The show goes on for the retiring Keith Dambrot. Michigan State, always tough in the opening round, gets past Mississippi State easily 69-51, and now a final. Creighton tops Akron 77-60. Arizona, after a slow start, leads Long Beach State in the second half 65-49. Wagner trailing North Carolina at the half by a score of 40-28. Armando Bacot, 14 points, 11 rebounds in the first half. And early on, it's Morehead State leading Illinois 11-5 with less than 4 minutes gone by in the first half. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is Bart Winkler. I've got a new show weeknights. Join me for the Bart Winkler Show starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, only on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Creighton takes care of Akron 77-60. Michigan State, Sparty Party. Tom Izzo dancing to the second round. They defeat Mississippi State 69-51. BYU, very slow start. They made it close at the end, but could not defeat Duquesne. Duquesne wins 71-67. And the game's in play right now, 7:22 to go. Give Long Beach State, coached by Dan Munson, some credit for showing up in the first half. Remember, he was already fired weeks ago as their head coach, then wins the conference tournament and then gets a 15 seed. They were trailing at halftime 41-35 to 2 seed Arizona. Arizona's a 2 last year loss to Princeton. They're coached by Tommy Lloyd, but now Arizona's starting to pull away with 7:20 to go. They're up 70-53. At halftime, UNC taking care of Wagner 40-28, and a potential very early but upset brewing between Morehead State and Illinois. Brad Underwood's squad is a 3 seed. They just won the Big Ten, but Morehead State is up 17-13 so far. Still to come later today, Oregon, South Carolina, Nevada, Dayton. You have Colorado State, Texas, Oakland, Kentucky, McNeese up against Gonzaga, South Dakota State against Iowa State, St. Peter's against Tennessee, NC State against Texas Tech, Samford against Kansas, Drake with the DeVries family going up against Washington State, and that will conclude our official day one of the NCAA tournament. This portion of the show is sponsored by the new Hyundai Tucson, available with complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Now it's easy to use your phone to control your Tucson. Let's hear from Caleb Williams yesterday at his pro day. This is Caleb Williams if he's expected now with Justin Fields getting traded to the Steelers for a conditional 6 that could turn into a 4 if Caleb Williams expects to be drafted by the Bears at number 1.
I wouldn't say it's my full expectation. Obviously, things can happen, things can change throughout this time. I think it's around 33 days or so, 30 days until, April 25th. And so, a lot can change. You take it day by day. Handle and control what you can control.
So that's a professional answer. I don't expect him to say anything else. I'll give you the hot take of the day. That's not really a hot take if you can't detect sarcasm. Caleb Williams, 1,000% lock it up. He is going to be the number 1 overall pick in this draft. And then the questions become, all right, who do the Commanders take at 2? Will the Patriots trade the pick at 3? I think they end up taking a quarterback. And then is anyone going to be willing to come up to 4? As Monty Ossenfort has confirmed that teams have been calling and they're open to doing business. It does not mean that they're going to trade the pick, but they're going to open up the door for all possibilities to happen for the Cardinals, who do currently sit with the 4th overall pick. So here's my biggest question with Caleb Williams. I think bare minimum, he's going to be a very good quarterback. He has potential to be a generational star in this sport. But you had a locker room, especially led by DJ Moore, who was so adamant that they wanted to keep Justin Fields. And it's one thing when the quarterback is already in the building to say, I would prefer Justin Fields to be the quarterback. But it wasn't only DJ Moore, it was others that kept on saying it over and over and over again. And I'm paraphrasing here, but DJ Moore said something along the lines of, Justin Fields is better than all these guys that are in the draft. He doesn't see what those guys have in the draft that Justin Fields does not have. So I just wonder, when you hear about some of the sensitivity with Caleb Williams, is that going to be a problem walking into the locker room right away? Because if I had to hear for 2-3 months an entire team say, maybe not how they didn't want me, like they didn't directly say they didn't want Caleb Williams, but they were saying they wanted Justin Fields, and it could be spun into, well, they didn't want me, and now not only am I their quarterback, but I'm the most important person in the organization. I'm being touted the savior. Will Caleb Williams be affected by that? And will there be any players that are maybe still caught up in their feelings, that still have clout in that locker room, that are saying, man, Justin Fields should be the guy? And what happens if Caleb Williams gets on the field and let's say 4 or 5 weeks into the season is a little underwhelming or is having a difficult time transitioning from college into the NFL? I just wonder if there will be any issues that do pop up in the locker room. Here was Bears corner Jalen Johnson on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams talking about Caleb Williams coming into the Chicago Bears locker room.
You just humble yourself coming in the building. I feel like it's one of those things where it's like you can't, like you said, you can't bring that Hollywood stuff into the building, especially now with guys who play this game. I feel like at a high level for consecutive years in the league, it's just something that we're going to see through. And it's like, nah, that what you did in college, the Hollywood, it's like, nah, that you got to prove yourself. That stuff like that doesn't matter. But I feel like so I think truly just learning who he is as a person, learning him deeper than just all the Hollywood stuff you see, but actually trying to learn and get to know him. And then from there, knowing what pushes him. If it is trash talk makes them crumble, then I feel like we got to push that button because people in the game, they're going to push that button. So just depending on whatever it is that he needs to be pushed at, I feel like that's our job and that's our duty as his teammates to make him better, to strengthen his weaknesses.
Football is a relationship sport. Football is also an ego sport. And we know that Caleb Williams is coming into the Bears locker room as a savior. That's the perception. But it does not mean that the players view him as a savior. And they also, a lot of them preferred to have Justin Fields as the quarterback. So we know that Caleb Williams cares a lot about his perception off the field. He cares a lot about being a star and being, right, an icon as well. And sometimes people can handle that. Other people, it ruins them. Like, look at Russell Wilson in the last 2-3 years. He's cared more about being an icon and being, right, this star off the field than a star on the field. And it has derailed his football career. As long as Caleb Williams says the right thing, like, he still has to go in there with the alpha mentality. He still has to go in there with an ego. But as long as he can get on the same page with his teammates and he is not insufferable and he takes accountability, unlike Zach Wilson, who threw, right, the entire would not put accountability on the offense or himself for his shortcomings 2 years ago, and that led to his benching. This may not be a big deal. But I do wonder the most where the relationship will be with DJ Moore and Caleb Williams, because DJ Moore's a stud. They also just brought in Keenan Allen as well. But it was clear that DJ Moore made his opinions abundantly clear that he preferred Justin Fields. And I wonder what that initial relationship will be like with DJ Moore and Caleb Williams, and how long it takes for the players in that locker room to get over the fact that Justin Fields is no longer there. And Caleb Williams is a better player, so you play well, and I think that's the way that you gain the respect of the locker room. Clay Harbor will join us next in studio. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Hour number 2 of our radio program, rocking and rolling. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. We have the NCAA tournament underway. Earlier today, Duquesne upset BYU 71-67. Creighton to take down Akron 77-60. You had Michigan State with Tom Izzo dominating this time of the year up against Mississippi State by a final score of 69-51. And we got a few games in play right now. 7 minutes to go in the first half. Moorhead stayed up on Illinois in a 14-3 game, 27-23. UNC early goings of the second half, 18-21 remaining. They're up by 10 against Wagner. And you have Arizona really pulling away from Long Beach State now. It's 82-60 as the Wildcats are 4 minutes away from advancing to the second round. Remember, last year as a 2 seed, they did lose to Mitch Henderson's Princeton Tigers, who were supposed to be the tourney this year, and then got upset in the first round of the Ivy League tournament. But this time of the year, we still talk a lot about football. And now joining us in studio is the former NFL tight end, now does a great job doing a bunch of media work in Chicago and Philadelphia, and that is Clay Harbor, kind enough to pay us a visit here in the New York City studios. Clay, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm great, man. Appreciate you having me on, Zach, and ready to talk some football. I know it's basketball season, March Madness, but to me, football season is year-round, so always can talk ball.
So let me start you off with the Bears, because we've heard the comments from Jalen Johnson. We know how outspoken DJ Moore was this offseason, how they all wanted Justin Fields. Now Justin Fields gets traded to the Steelers, and we all know Caleb Williams is going to be the number 1 overall pick. Mm-hmm. How do you think Caleb needs to approach walking into that locker room, especially knowing this was a place that, yes, he's the number 1 pick, he's the savior of the franchise now, but a lot of the other guys wanted Justin Fields to continue in Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking, hey, DJ Moore made it abundantly clear and over again that he wanted Justin Fields, almost probably to a detriment to him. Because obviously at some point you know that there's going to be a change happening, and now this quarterback comes in knowing that you wanted someone else throwing him the ball. I don't think that'll be an issue. These guys realize that the NFL's a business. As a player, you want to go to bat for your teammates. And that was his teammate at the time, and I realized he's throwing his weight behind him as a Pro Bowl caliber player, as a star receiver. He likes Justin. He wanted to help him out as his teammate. But NFL players, we know it's a business, man. As much as you want to say you're a family, it's a business. Sometimes these guys are like mercenaries. You get paid sold to the highest bidder. But what Caleb needs to do is he just got to come in and he has to work. If I'm a guy, I've had big-time tight ends come into tight end rooms. I've seen big-time guys come into offenses. I've seen it done the right way, and I've seen it done the wrong way. And I've seen guys come in, they're a high draft pick, and they kind of think that something's going to be given to them, but it's not. You have to earn everything. You have to earn the team's respect, and especially as a quarterback, the way to do that is to come in, to be humble, to not have an ego, and to work. And like you alluded to, the Jalen Johnson comments, he doesn't want the Hollywood stuff, is what he said. He's looking for Caleb Williams to come in and work and to be successful, but not to come in with that big ego because he's the number 1 pick.
So here's the tricky part, because I want my quarterback to be an alpha, but you also then need to be able to have a good relationship and the respect of your teammates. Now, there's a lot of older guys in the locker room. There's probably guys in that locker room that just say, I don't care what Caleb Williams does off the field. I just want a winner. I want someone solid at the quarterback position. So is that difficult to manage? Number 1 overall pick, big star, big ego, right, coming in. But I don't want you to kind of curl up into a ball and then not have a lot of persona because you are the alpha of the team now.
No, okay, Zach, I've played with the New England Patriots, Tom Brady. I've played with the New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees. I've played with Michael Vick. I've played with Matthew Stafford. Mm-hmm. And what those guys do, there's not some persona. They're not trying to – they are real guys, but they work. Tom Brady, I remember going to New England. I'm nervous, what to expect. I walk into the meeting room. Who's in the front row taking notes in his 16th year? Tom Brady. What's he taking notes on? He's been in the same offense for 16 years. He's in the front row. What's he drawing, stick figures? He knows this offense better than coordinators do. Okay, that's the kind of stuff you need to do. Drew Brees, I signed with the Saints, right? I go out with Drew Brees. I'm in New Orleans. I'm a backup tight end. I had a really strong OTAs. Drew invites me out to San Diego in the offseason. He flies me out first class, me and Kobe Fleener. If you remember him, tight end, was on the Saints as well. Puts us up in a 5-star hotel, pays first class both ways, picks us up every morning at 6 a.m. just so we can go and throw with him for 4 days in San Diego. Paid for his training facility, paid for us to get massages. That is how you capture a team. Doing things like Tom Brady in the front row, taking notes early every day. Drew Brees, flying his players out. 6 a.m. every day picking us up. And I've been with players that haven't done that. I'm not going to try to crap on somebody, but Blake Bortles didn't do things the right way. And he was a very talented guy, could run, could throw, could do a ton of things. Wasn't the hardest worker. We wanted to go throw in L.A. He missed days when he had players out there to throw with him. Yes. So to me, you come in, you have that professional mentality. I'm going to be the best, but to be the best, I have to work the hardest. And to prove myself, nothing is given to me. This is day 1 in the NFL. Couldn't be more different than college football, especially as a quarterback. They're seeing coverages and stuff. So come in, work your tail off, as cliche as it sounds, and the players will pick up on that and respect you because of it.
Clay Harbor in with us in studio, former NFL tight end, does a lot of great media work right now. We know the Bears have been looking for their quarterback forever.
Yeah.
On a scale of 0 to 100, 0, no shot, 100%, this is going to work. Where are you at with Caleb Williams being as good as advertised?
0 to 100, I'm I'd say a 75%. I'm not, it's obviously you're in college. And like you said, the Bears need a quarterback. They're the only franchise to never have a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards or 30 touchdowns. Either of them. 30 touchdowns, 4,000 yards, today's NFL.
Easy.
Like, that's not that hard. Back in the day, different league now. So that's crazy. But I haven't seen this guy take a snap in the NFL. He's made some exciting off-script plays, but can he sit in the offense and deliver the ball on time? So that's what I want to see him do. He holds the ball a little too long. Or we're saying the same thing about Justin Fields. He fumbles a lot. Saying the same thing about Justin Fields. So for me, I need to see him do in the NFL game. If he comes and he works, he's obviously talented. He's 6 foot tall. He's a little short, 6.5 feet, whatever he was at the pro day. So to me, I'm confident he'll do good, like a C+, 75%. I see it. I hope it happens. I think he's coming in to a really good situation. Justin Fields is probably envious the situation he came into with a roster teardown and then the Matt Nagy debacle. He's coming in throwing to DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet. He's got some playmakers there, DeAndre Swift. So he's got it set up. The Bears defense in the last 8 weeks was number 1 scoring defense in the league. So that's why I'm up at 75%, even as a rookie. People got to realize it's a big jump. You go through your biggest jump from year 1 to year 2.
Not everyone's C.J. Stroud.
Not everyone. And C.J. Stroud has really changed the game for people when they look at it.
Yeah.
He's an anomaly.
It actually makes it tougher now for Caleb Williams. Because don't get me wrong, there's so much hype with Caleb Williams that I think some of the analysis now becomes fatigue with just talking about someone and we have to find different things. But with what Stroud did, this is what have you done lately? Yeah. And even though he was the 2nd overall pick and Caleb's going to be 1, Williams gets off to a slow start. People are going to say, you have a lot more in Chicago than what C.J. Stroud had in Houston. And those conversations, they do matter.
And I think that's fair because I think that's 100% true. You got Keenan Allen, who obviously is 32 years old, but you got to realize Keenan Allen
is the number 2 wide receiver for them.
He's number 2 wide receiver, but he had his best year last year. He was leading the league in receptions, I think 2nd in yards before he got hurt at week 13. This guy's game, the guys that you see a fast decline are the guys that use their athleticism and explosiveness to win, okay? Why is Keenan Allen so good? It's his route running. It's his hands. It's his craftiness. And he's only getting better. And he's only getting better because he's getting smarter and he knows how to use it. He knows how to pressure defenses now. So he's going to keep improving. DJ Moore is only 26 years old.
Yeah.
He's still young. Cole Kmet's only 25 years old. DeAndre Swift is 25 years old. These are all young guys that you can grow with. The Bears' offensive line is actually going to be pretty solid this year if they stay healthy. I think they brought in some good pieces at center that they needed, and maybe they bring in a tackle at some point during the draft to back up Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright. But he's in a good position, and you said it, Zach. It's what happened with C.J. Stroud. People are going to say, hey, he did it with less. If this guy doesn't do it, he's not living up to those expectations.
Here's also the other good part about this conversation is Clay Harbor joins us right now in studio. It's the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. The Bears also have another top 10 pick, and they're in at 9. Now, it obviously matters who's available at 9 and how the 8 picks before it shake on out. But who are some players at 9 that you think will be in play for the Bears that could help on the offense side of the ball or the defense side of the ball for this new regime in Chicago?
Defensively, I really like Dallas Turner. I know he could be more of an outside linebacker type guy, but I think he could play edge in a 4-3. He's a little light right now, but 4'4", 40-inch vertical. The guy's explosive, 10 sacks at Alabama. He's playing against top-level competition. If you put him with Montez Sweat on each side, and that's their biggest need is edge. You got to do something at edge. If you're not doing it in the free agency, signing someone like Mike Dana or one of the second-tier guys that are still out there. Jadeveon Clowney's a guy I think they should look at. There's some free agents there still that you could still piece together a good room because you have Sweat. But Jared Verse as well. 4'5'8", but he's just athletic. He's fluid, over 10 sacks the last couple of years. Jared Verse is a really good player. You have to go edge.
Especially at Albany, too, which is a crazy story with him.
Wow, I didn't even realize that. Yeah, but he's just a good player.
Found him. One of his assistants was watching, I guess they either played or somewhere filmed. They were
Albany.
looking. They were watching film, and they were looking for another player, and they turned to the film. They're like, wait, this kid that was in the portal, we remember seeing him we should go get him. And then Jared Verse at times is being projected as a top 5 pick, now anywhere between like 8 to 15 in this draft.
Wow. And then if you trade back, I lied to Latu. I don't know if I butchered your name and you're listening, I'm sorry. But I like him. He's not the most athletic guy, but he is smooth. And he is just got, like, watching him run through the drills, the combine, watching him at the Senior Bowl. I'm like, okay, this guy can play. And obviously, I think D tackle's a position. They need a 3 technique. I don't really see a guy there that they could really pick unless they trade it down. But I think you invest more into the offensive side of the ball, get another weapon at wide receiver, or you go Joe Alt at tackle if he's there. Odds are he might not be, but like Rome Odunze, 1,640 yards. You watch him. I mean, he is just a smooth. He's fast. He ran that 4.45. He had a big combine, obviously, 6'3", 215. He ran a 4.03 20-yard shuttle. That just shows you this guy's quick. And I love you're watching the combine. He's on the field after everybody's gone.
To get the drill right.
That's the guy I want. Because that guy is going to continue to improve because you can see he's willing to outwork people. And I don't know if Neighbors or Odunze or if one of those guys are there. I love both these receivers. I know this is such a deep receiver draft, and I could go to the 2nd and 3rd round and pick out guys I love from the Senior Bowls and just guys I've loved from, watching the tape, anywhere from Ricky Pearsall to A.D. Mitchell, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr. I could keep going here, but those 2 receivers, I think you pair them with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, you have a top 5 receiver room.
Let me get back to the quarterback. So Williams goes 1.
Yeah.
Let's say you're running the Commanders. Which quarterback are you taking with the 2nd overall pick?
I'm probably taking Jaden Daniels. And I know there's that argument there, obviously, between Drake May. I like Drake May, 6'4", 223 pounds, the big arm. But he had a down year. Like, he missed a lot of throws. And, like, watching him, and, like, I've been taught a little bit of quarterback technique. His technique looks good. So I'm like, why is this guy missing throws? And when you see it, he just misses some throws, technique. I'm like, maybe the guy just isn't that accurate, And I think that's something that scares me a little. Drake May, I don't think he's Mitch Trubisky reincarnated like some people do, but I think he's got a lot to improve on. If he could sit somewhere, that'd be great. And I know they got Mariota over there in Washington, so maybe a guy come in and sit, but I don't see that happening. They're probably going to want him to play right away.
Yeah, it feels like we know Williams going to be 1.
Yeah.
And then it does feel like it's going to be Daniels or May, 2, 3, Commanders, Pats. You could flip-flop them.
Yeah.
Then the Cardinals at 4 become a fascinating conversation.
Trade.
I can make the case, go get Marvin Harrison Jr.,
Yeah.
Go get Malik Neighbors, whoever it is, so you could help out Kyler Murray, who doesn't have much around him, or you trade back and you have a team like the Vikings come up from 4 to jump the Giants, and you get, 3 future first-round picks. So let's say a team like the Vikings or the Giants, they're looking for a quarterback. At that point, Vikings up to 4, or if they don't do that, then the Giants at 6. McCarthy probably the guy that's going to be the pick for the way that this is mocked. What's your view on J.J. McCarthy right now as a prospect?
I actually really like J.J. McCarthy. And I know he didn't get all the reps as some people, but I thought he was going to be smaller. He's 6'3", 220. Like, this guy at the combine, I mean, he looked bigger than what I thought he was. But when he had the opportunity, and I went back and watched the Ohio State game recently, this guy was making some tough throws.
Roman Wilson was a great throw.
My goodness, this guy's on the move. I know there was the games where he didn't even have to throw the ball and all that, but Harbaugh knows what he's doing. And I don't think it's just lip service when he's saying he really thinks that this is one of the best quarterbacks he's ever coached. And when a guy puts his stamp on you like that, there's something there. And watching him play, I play with a lot of quarterbacks. I already listed you some of these guys. I think J.J. McCarthy has a nice arm motion, throws a catchable ball. He can move. He's a smart guy. He can get the ball out. And you look at some of his numbers at the combine. The 4.2, 5.10, 5, and the 6.8 3-cone. To me, that's agility, like in the pocket. Like, this guy can move. That's impressive for a wide receiver, those numbers. So there's a lot of things I like about McCarthy. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being the second best quarterback in this draft.
Wow. So give me your rankings then. The big 5 quarterbacks that we talk about the most.
Yeah.
It's Williams, it's Daniels, it's May, it's McCarthy, and then Michael Penix Jr.
Penix.
How would you rank those 5?
I go Williams, Daniels, McCarthy, I might go Penix. I might go Penix over Drake May. I'm not sold on Drake May. I think Penix, watching him play is underappreciated. This guy can sling it. Another guy at the Senior Bowl. I'm watching him. I go, I didn't think his arm strength was that good. This guy can throw it, man. He can spin the ball, and he's a lefty. I play with Michael Vick. I know it takes some getting used to catch the ball from the lefty, but the guy can play. You know who else I like? Is Bo Nix. I know he's older than.
Do you like Bo Nix over Drake May?
I think it's a toss. I would say next year, if you were playing with one of these guys, Drake May or Bo Nix, I think Bo Nix would have the better year. You look at him. He was number 1 in the NCAA in adjusted completion percentage. Obviously, he throws a lot of checkdowns, but this guy's seen so many defenses. I think he's an NFL-ready type of guy, and I even like Spencer Rattler. You know, he was pressured 40% of the time, 85% of the time in shotgun. He's only 6 foot, ran a 4.9, but I think he's a second to third round guy that I think, somebody could get, and then down the road could end up being a guy that could actually play. But to me, Drake May, going back and watching him, 10 picks this year, I'm like, I don't see the hype. I see the size, I see the arm, I see the release, I see he's got everything you need. But looking at him, he's missing a lot of guys in his hands. I'm not a big hands guy, but at quarterback, I think it does kind of matter. He had like some of the smallest hands like in the entire year of quarterbacks, like 9.1 inch hand. Those are small hands. So for a guy that's supposed to be holding on to the ball, I think that could be an issue too.
Let me ask you about the Steelers quarterback situation. It's wrapping up with Clay Harbor. Russell Wilson, and then you also have Justin Fields there. Yeah. As long as Russell Wilson is healthy, do you think he makes it to the end of the season without having Justin Fields usurp him as the quarterback?
I'm a little biased, so you're asking me. I'm a Chicago guy. I was a big Fields supporter, and even just before we get to that, I think that the Bears, they didn't have to trade Fields now. You gave away Justin Fields. You don't have to coddle these guys like Caleb Williams. Oh, you don't want him. Bro, look back at the Troy Aikmans and Steve Walsh, the Montanas and the Youngs. Like there's Alex Smith, Pat Mahomes was drafted, Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts. You don't give away Justin Fields for a conditional 6th round pick next year. To me, don't coddle these guys. Tell them compete. The best player is going to play. We're drafting you, and I know there'd be a circus, whatever. I don't care. You're a football player. You compete and show me you're better, and the best player wins. The cream rises to the top. But when we come to Fields, he did getting traded for that 6th round pick. I think Fields, to me, it makes sense that he plays. Okay, obviously Tomlin's coming out and saying there's not a competition. If Fields comes into training camp and outplays Russell Wilson, do you think Mike Tomlin, one of the big advocates of competition, the best player is going to play, is not going to play Justin Fields?
If that's the case, then Russell Wilson's career is over because he should be able, and I like Fields. I think Fields in the right situation could work. But at this stage of his career, Russell Wilson better win that competition.
He better, but here it makes more sense because where's the future? Even if they're
Fields has
tied,
a higher ceiling.
Even if they're tied, this is 35 versus 25 here. Fields is an up-and-coming guy. If they're similar, you got to give it to Fields just because this guy could actually be your franchise quarterback in the future. Is Russell Wilson going to be a franchise quarterback? No, he's a Band-Aid.
Yeah,
he's a guy that stopgap guy, and Fields could actually be the future. Fields actually had a higher QBR by 10 points last year than Russell Wilson. I think Fields wins this job. He's a competitor. He's more athletic. He can throw the ball further. I like Russell. I'm a big Russell fan, but after watching him the last couple of years, it's not the same Russell Wilson we saw in Seattle.
All right, last thing I'll ask you as we wrap it up with Clay Harbor, has been great with us in studio. About a month ago, someone asked me about the Eagles, and I said there's nothing the Eagles could do this offseason that would make me be confident about them because I don't believe in Nick Sirianni, and he lost all the order in that locker room, and they don't respect him, and he's a doormat, and they walk all over him. Then they go out and they get Huff from the Jets. They find a way to work it with Sweat. They still got to find a way to work it with Reddick. I think he's going to get traded. And they bring in Saquon Barkley. And I'm like, man, this NFC's not that good. And I'm starting to buy back in on Philadelphia. So it changes very quickly, folks. Where are you at with the Eagles right now?
I think they've done some good things. They just signed Paris Campbell today. And Devontae Parker, was that the...
Oh, yeah, they brought him.
And Parker. So
he
now,
stinks.
I think these are okay guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just need somebody that could catch the ball besides A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I'm back in on him too. Saquon, I think he got overpaid a little bit for what he's been doing, but this guy he's a different breed of running back. And with that offensive line, even with Kelsey gone, I'm expecting big things. I think Pickett as a backup was a good move too, just in case you have to spend some time there with your backup, a guy that can get you some wins. And I think the biggest thing they did this offseason was bring in some coordinators. I think the coordinators last year were awful. And I think now you got some guys that actually know how to call offenses and know how to call defenses. I mean, Kellen Moore is a guy, when he was in Dallas, he was leading the league in points and in yards, and Vic Fangio is a guy that's literally wrote the book on specific defenses. So having those two guys, those two generals are going to help you a lot. And bringing back C.J. Gardner-Johnson, obviously you get a new linebacker. There's some people saying that Devin White isn't what he used to be, but he's better than what they had.
Yeah,
I will say that. So I think that the Eagles, I'll take them over the Cowboys. The Cowboys were sleeping.
Oh, the Cowboys.
Jerry Jones was taking a nap.
All in.
Siesta.
Yeah. Skip Bayless would say all in. Pause, pause, comma.
Eagles to the East. Eagles winning the East this year. You're hearing it here first.
He's a 9-year NFL veteran. You could follow him on Twitter at ClayHarbs82. He's Clay Harbor, kind enough to join us today in studio. Clay, great to see you. Thank you.
No, appreciate you having me on.
All righty, coming on back, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. You know, it's funny how this works out with the Bears. For so many years, the most underrated wide receiver in football, like the one guy everyone says the most underrated wide receiver in football, was Keenan Allen. And another incredibly underrated wide receiver in football for a while was DJ Moore. Now, when you've been considered the most underrated wide receiver in football for a while, I don't think you're underrated anymore. And you have not only DJ Moore in that wide receiving room, but you also have Keenan Allen. So off of DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, used to being some of the more underrated wide receivers in football, now being in the wide receiver room, I'm going to give you 5 wide receivers right now in the sport that I still don't think get the shine and the credit that they're deserving of. Let me start off in Philadelphia. Everyone talks about A.J. Brown this, A.J. Brown that. Is A.J. Brown in a good mood today? Is A.J. Brown getting along with Jalen Hurts? We all know that A.J. Brown is on that top 10 wide receiving list. But then there's Devontae Smith, who maybe had one of the more remarkable college careers that I could remember. A guy won a Heisman Trophy, and when you win a Heisman Trophy, that's like the defining moment, right, of your college career. Devontae Smith also was the player that caught the touchdown on the walk-off up against Georgia, up against, Alabama, Georgia, when Tua Tagovailoa replaced Jalen Hurts at halftime. That was Devontae Smith who caught the touchdown. So Devontae Smith, I think, won 2 championships at Alabama and won a Heisman and had a walk-off touchdown in a national championship game. And Devontae Smith has come into the league, 64 receptions, 916 yards. Then the next year, 95 receptions, 1,196 yards. And this past year, 81 receptions and over 1,000 yards, 1,066. I think everyone acknowledges that Devontae Smith is good, but I don't think he gets enough credit for what he's been able to do. This has been a guy that I've been a supporter of the last 2 years. And then in year number 3, he blossomed. I was always a fan of Nico Collins. I think Nico Collins had the ability to be a really good wide receiver. And look what happens. You get a competent quarterback, and then you turn into, from a statistical standpoint, a great wide receiver. Like the first 2 years, he was fine. 33 receptions, 37 receptions, 446 yards, 481 yards. Nothing to write home about. Like you thought he could be like eventually maybe one day a number 2 wide receiver. But this past year, Nico Collins was dominant. 1,300 yards, 80 receptions, and 8 receiving touchdowns. Another player that's still underrated, Tyler Lockett. he is so underappreciated in Seattle. This guy in the last 5 years, 1,000 yards, 1,100 yards, another 1,000-yard receiving, had some injuries this past year, 79 receptions for 894 yards. And remember, that was at the downfall of Russell Wilson and then Geno Smith coming into Seattle. And you have a crowded wide receiver room with, as of last year, you know that DK Metcalf's been there for a few years, but you also have now Jackson Smith and Jigba in that wide receiving room. The next guy, isn't it funny? You go from being overrated at one point to then being underrated. I think Amari Cooper is now underrated. At one point, he was considered overrated. But then he got traded to the Browns for basically a bag of footballs. And all this guy has done in Cleveland for 2 years has been at least an 1,100-yard wide receiver and gets you over 70 catches. In 2022, he had 78 receptions, 1,160 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Let me remind you, Deshaun Watson only played 6 games at the end of the season. Last year, you had like 4 quarterbacks playing because of all the injuries, and he had 72 receptions, 1,250 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That, though, is hilarious to me because when he came into the league, it was like, oh, he's not meeting the expectations, and he's been on like the Raiders, the Cowboys, and now the Browns, and now I think he's actually an underrated wide receiver in this league. And with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore no longer being considered the most underrated wide receiver in football, I think people talk about this guy as being a top 10 wide receiver, but I think he get even more credit. The most underrated wide receiver now in football is Scary Terry and Mr. Terry McLaurin. This dude has never had a quarterback. Never. First year in the league, 58 receptions, 919 yards, 7 touchdowns. Second year, 87 receptions, 1,118 yards, 4 touchdowns. Third year in the league, 77 receptions, 1,053 yards, and had 5 touchdowns. And the last 2 years, 77 receptions, 79 receptions, 1,191 yards, 5 touchdowns, and over 1,000 yards once again this year and 4 touchdowns. We're looking at a span of a 5-year career so far in the NFL. 378 receptions, 5,283 yards, and 25 touchdowns. And when I ask you to name him who his quarterback was, you have a bunch of answers because there's been no consistent guy with the Commanders. Samter, who are some other wide receivers that are underrated in the NFL right now based off Keenan Allen and DJ Moore getting in the same wide receiver room? I've given you Devontae Smith, Nico Collins, Tyler Lockett, Amari Cooper, and Terry McLaurin.
So the one that stands out, the one that to me is the most underrated name.
Now, real quickly, don't give me the name yet. AFC
Okay.
or NFC?
NFC.
NFC wide receiver.
Yes.
Underrated. And is it Addison of the Vikings, or is it not long enough of a sample size?
Not long enough of a sample size.
I know who it is.
Tell me.
Chris Olave?
He was my number 2, but that was a very good guess. Chris Olave was my number 2 most underrated wide receiver.
Okay, give me the answers then.
Number 1 is a guy who's starting to blow up, and he's not going to be underrated for very much longer. Mm-hmm. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, that's a great one. I don't underrate him, but that's a great one.
People kind of look at him as being like, oh, he's a good receiver on a good team. No,
it's a great one.
This dude, 3 years in the league, 900 yards, 1,100 yards, 1,500 yards, 90 catches, 106 catches, 120 catches, 10 touchdowns last year, 6 and 5. The guy is an elite top 10, top 12 running wide receiver, maybe even higher. This guy is going to be one of the best, if not the best receiver in the league outside of Justin Jefferson. The guy is absolutely amazing.
And you know what? I would still actually consider him underrated, and it's a sensational answer because when you think of the Lions, you think more so of Dan Campbell first. You think of Aiden Hutchinson as well. And offensively, don't get me wrong, St. Brown is probably the first player that you think of offensively on that team, but I wonder when people come out with these top 10 lists over the summer, that will tell us if he's underrated or overrated. Well, he's not overrated, but if he's underrated, because I think of him as a really good wide receiver, but he's better than just a really good wide receiver. That's a great one.
Yeah, and you mentioned Olave. Everyone talks about Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, Jahan Dotson, Christian Watson, George Pickens, Romeo Doubs, all from that same 2022 wide receiver class. Chris Olave, all he's done in his first 2 years, 72 catches, 1,000 yards, 87 catches, 1,100 yards in 2 years with no quarterback in New Orleans. Chris Olave is absolutely a beast, and he's on pace to maybe even be better than any of those receivers in that class that everyone talks about. And I love Garrett Wilson because when I was a Jets fan, he was a beast. And, now I still like him because, what he did. And
he is actually my favorite wide receiver from that 2022 draft class. Like, going in, I thought he was the best. I thought he was getting a little Justin Jefferson treatment going into that draft class where I'm like, wow, this guy's incredible, but the mock drafts just weren't reflecting, and he still went in the top 15 of the draft.
Anyway. I think he went 11 because Garrett Wilson went 10. I think Olabi went right after him.
I think you had receivers go 10, 11, 12 or something like that.
Well, no, Drake London went 7 or 8 to the Falcons.
He went 8 to the Falcons.
And then Wilson went 10 to the Jets, and then 11, I think, was Olave. And the last one I'll mention, Brandon Cooks is a guy, but he's kind of on the downward of his career who's been underrated for a long time.
A lot of concussions, unfortunately.
Christian
but he's
Kirk
good.
got that big deal, but he's put up decent numbers. But the other guy I'm going to mention, he just got a big deal. But until he got the big deal, before he got franchised in Indy, Michael Pittman Jr. has been an absolute beast
Always
in his few years. Right? He's one of those guys no one talks about until he got this big contract. He's had 2 years over 1,000 yards, 1 year at 925 yards, 2 years basically over 100 receptions. The guy's been an absolute beast. Again, in a system where there hasn't been a quarterback that's been an elite level quarterback.
By the way, you have an extra cup of coffee today?
No.
Oh, my God. You're speaking like 3,000 miles an hour.
Too fast?
No, you're just really energetic today. Very exuberant.
Well, because listen, you want me to go quick. You don't want me to take up too much airtime, so I'm trying to get as much point in before you cut me off and jump in.
I thought for a second we had to see how many cups of coffee you had, or maybe we had to drug test you during the break, honestly.
Listen, that's
you're making good points. I'm not saying your
points are
bad.
That's what March Madness does to us, baby. It's like a life high.
You were shot out of a cannon today.
Yeah, baby.
I know I see you coming to work every day with that helmet on your cabeza because you bike to work. I was wondering if you just got shot out of a cannon right to the 345 Hudson Street studios today.
But, I made a lot of money from Shohei's bookie.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, I'm not wiring you any money if you end up getting into debt. I'll tell you that. You'd be SOL, all righty? All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a time out. We'll get to our favorite scandals off the Shohei Ohtani saga when we return. Update time first, though. Here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
All right. Field of 64 well underway. Top-seeded North Carolina now having no problems with Wagner. The Tar Heels up 85-58 in the second half as Armando Bacot with 20 points and 15 rebounds. Illinois having a tough time with Morehead State. At the half, the Fighting Illini lead by just one, 39-38. Terrence Shannon Jr. with 19 so far for Illinois. And a good one between a 6 and 11 seeds. Oregon in front of South Carolina early 21-20. These are all finals. Duquesne made its first appearance in the tournament since 1977 and made the most of it.
5 to shoot. Working the dribble. Clark drives down the lane. Left-handed layup is good. Trey Clark with a big deuce. And it's 65-60. Duquesne by 5.
Kevin Kugler on Westwood won. The Dukes pull off the upset, knocking off BYU 71-67. First tournament win for them since 1969. It comes after Keith Dambrot, their head coach, announced his retirement earlier in the week. Creighton beating Akron 77-60. And Arizona, an easy winner over Long Beach State 85-65. Michigan State also advancing. The Lions have waived Cam Sutton after an arrest warrant was issued in relation to an alleged domestic incident in Florida. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty. The official real start of the NCAA tournament is today. Michigan State 69, Mississippi State 51. Winners Duquesne as an 11 upsets Mark Pope's BYU squad 71-67. Creighton, a little bit of a close game in the first half. They pulled away in the second half 77-60. Arizona dominates Long Beach State 85-65. UNC dominates Wagner 90-62. The two games in play right now, second half, 18:36 to go. Morehead stayed up 40-39 against Illinois. And then Oregon, who's never lost a first-round game under their head coach in Dana Altman. They are up. They just took the lead by 1 point over South Carolina, 23-22. You got Nevada and Dayton today, Colorado State Texas, Oakland, Kentucky, McNeese, Gonzaga. I'm rooting for the Zags in this one. Nothing against McNeese, but everyone's picking McNeese just because Will Wade. And you look at the schedule at some of the schools that McNeese has played. I've never even heard of some of these schools. College of Biblical Studies, Champion Christian, Laterno. I thought that was like an Italian dish or something like that. Mississippi University for Women. These are some of the schools that McNeese played this past year. So I know Will Wade's a very good coach, and if it wasn't the scandal and then LSU started to fall off a little bit, he wouldn't have got fired. But, man, just when everyone's telling me McNeese, I'm like, I'll take Gonzaga and Markview. Iowa State, South Dakota State still to come. St. Peter's in Tennessee, NC State, Texas Tech, Samford, Kansas, Drake, Washington State. That's the rest of the schedule today. But we did start the show with the Shohei Ohtani scandal. And I think Major League Baseball has to investigate. It doesn't appear like the interpreter or Ohtani gambled on baseball. But the big question now is, if that's true, was this Ohtani being a loyal friend paying off the debts of the interpreter? Or was there something else going on? Did the interpreter steal from Ohtani to pay the $1 million? And there's still like $4 or $5 million that I guess still needed to be paid off. Or was the interpreter being the fall guy for Shohei Ohtani? So without knowing really what's going on, I want to revisit our 3 favorite scandals in sports. My favorite scandal, and actually somewhat was involved in this, was the Manti Te'o catfishing scandal with Lene Kukua, who never actually existed. And remember, you had Manti Te'o's grandma pass away, and then like the next day, you also had the girlfriend that never existed passed away. But Deadspin was really big at the time, and they actually broke the story. And I'll never forget, my face is smack in the middle of the online version of the Deadspin article because I was interviewing Manti Te'o at the Heisman, and I talked to him for 6-7 minutes about losing his girlfriend and how he was able to fight through that and still have this great year at Notre Dame. And I'll never forget, I was at a fraternity party, my fraternity, at Temple University, and I got a call from my buddy who did not go to Temple, one of my childhood friends. He's like, "You're in the Manti Te'o article." And I'm like, "What do you mean I'm in the Manti Te'o article?" I'm like, "I wasn't involved in this catfishing. I didn't do anything that was associated here." And on my phone, it didn't load the photo. And then I went on my laptop and I saw my enormous cabeza right smack in the middle of the Manti Te'o article. But that was wild. And I'll never forget that. The documentary just recently came out, and I was in the documentary where they were showing my quick interview with him at the Heisman. But that was the most bizarre scandal because you are the star linebacker, not at some small school. You're the star linebacker at Notre Dame. You're a Heisman Trophy finalist, and you got duped by a catfisher when you could have literally have slept with probably any woman on the campus of Notre Dame. And you went from this great, successful story that everyone had sympathy for to then just looking like a fool because you trusted someone that was pretending to be somebody else. So that was a scandal that I'll always remember when I look back at that. Samter, what's your scandal, by the way?
So I was deciding between a bunch of them. My third was Deflategate because that was really just fun to watch you guys squirm. You cheaters, you liars.
We ended up looking great, though, because Goodell and Mike Kensel, a bunch of rats still to this day.
Yeah, I guess that's true. They're cheaters. Number 2 for me was Tiger Woods. Just all of Tiger Woods.
He wasn't a Jet fan anymore, Stu, right? It seems
no. At the time, I was a Jet fan, and I enjoyed watching you guys squirm and struggle. Tiger Woods.
We won a Super Bowl 2 weeks later. We really squirmed and struggled, and then after Brady got suspended, they won another Super Bowl.
Yeah, but until that happened, it was still fun to watch.
Yeah, that's fine. The Jets also had a Spygate scandal too.
Yeah, Tiger Woods was my number 2 scandal. All of that, the golf club to the face, the chipped tooth, the Perkins waitresses and all the sex addiction and everything like that. And then the comeback, that whole scandal was just absolutely incredible with Tiger Woods. But for me, the number one scandal is historic. It is the greatest scandal in the history of sports to me. It's Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding. I mean, come on. Like, all these other scandals are like gambling or like cheating on your wife or, bad things. This is literally some woman hired a hitman to break the kneecap of another woman so she can get into the Olympics. And then she got to the Olympics because of it. And they had to be teammates together. And then in her first skate, Tanya Harding's lace broke and she's crying on the ice. It was the most incredible scandal ever. The arrests, everything that happened afterwards with Tanya Harding's career and her life. Then they made a movie that won Oscars because it was so good, and Margot Robbie. So that, to me, without a doubt, the best scandal of all time.
Stu, what do you got cooking?
I'll go with the Astro sign stealing scandal. I just think it was so big. You had multiple teams that are still not over. Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox. Buzzers, trash cans, guys getting suspended, coaches getting suspended. Like, it was really incredible for me.
It is crazy looking back at that scandal. And I think as it's aged, I don't have any animosity from it anymore. And I think a lot of Yankee fans are still a bunch of crybabies from that. But you've had A.J. Hinch return to baseball. Carlos Beltran got screwed out of the Mets managerial job, had it, and then they basically said, okay, we need you to resign, and how that whole thing did go down. Alex Cora has returned. But the GM, Jeff Luhnow, has anyone heard a peep? I think he's in a different sport or something like that now. But it is crazy how everyone else has returned to the sport in some capacity, whether it's an analyst or it's a manager. And for Jeff Luhnow, I don't even know where the heck he is. The owner of a Mexican club,
yes.
Soccer team, I'm assuming this
Club
is?
Cancun and Leganes of Spain.
Yeah, I had him on once, CBS Sports Radio, in the weekend overnights. I had him on. He did a great interview with us, and it became part of one of the biggest scandals ever. But it's wild. You would think that eventually he'd be able to come back to the sport. And everyone else has, but Jeff Luhnow has not.
And I think, honestly, similar to Deflategate, part of it lost its teeth because the Patriots won a title after Deflategate. The Astros won after, Trashgate. So I think it all kind of...
Trashgate.
Whatever you want to call it.
What a name. Banging on the trash can. That was
That's
awesome.
what people call me all the time, Trashgate.
Oh, that's not nice. I think you're a little bit better than trash.
A little bit. Thanks. Thanks, dude. All right. That's a backhanded compliment if I've ever heard it.
I was
You're a little bit better than trash.
Sam's my guy. I wouldn't call you trash.
You're a half-eaten taco.
Yeah. Well, come on back. I'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We get to a news brief next. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here. But where else? CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
That was impressive. South Carolina hit a half-court shot at the buzzer to conclude the first 20 minutes of play. They are trailing Oregon. Oregon's up 34-29, but man, that was an impressive half-court shot, a little bit behind half-court. And it looks like that's going to count. It's not Sunday, so the banks are open. That was a beautiful shot by South Carolina. I was at, it was, who was it? It was UConn, maybe Cincinnati. It was the American Athletic Conference like years ago where the game went into like 4 or 5 overtimes and you had like a 3/4 of the court shot, 75% of the court shot that was hit from that far away a distance. This time of the year, it just brings back a lot of memories. I know that was from a conference tournament, but some of these NCAA tournament games are just bonkers. I was in the building when Florida Gulf Coast beat Georgetown. That was really damn cool. And you had the players when they eventually got through to the Sweet 16, I want to say that they were going up against Florida, and one of the star players walked into the media room and was like, Dunk City is coming to Arlington, because that was the next stop of the NCAA tournament. So there's so many memories that you have this time of the year. You know, I just want to revisit something real quickly before we go to a news brief. I'll give you the scores of the 3 games in play right now. Illinois had a little bit of a scare now with 11:59 to go. They're up 57-48 against Morehead State. Oregon at the half. Dana Altman's never lost a first-round game at Oregon. They're up 34-29 against South Carolina. Oregon's at 11. South Carolina is a 6. And you have a 7-10 game early, 12-13 left in the first. Nevada up 14-13 up against Dayton. But the other day we had Christian Laettner on, and we were talking about what's the most iconic buzzer beater in the NCAA tournament. And the one that we see the most, and it's been so many years obviously, was the Christian Laettner shot up against Kentucky, right? The Grant Hill pass, the catch, the turnaround, and then you just devastate the Kentucky Wildcats, who at the time were coached by Rick Pitino. And you had Laettner go through a bunch with us. And, right, you remember the Jalen Suggs to put them into the championship game. Bryce Drew at Valpo as well. Like, there's a bunch that you just remember.
Tyus Edney behind the back layup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many that you remember.
Oh, yeah.
But even Laettner said the Jenkins shot to win the national championship for Villanova has to be the best buzzer beater, because it's literally a buzzer beater to win the national championship. And I'll never forget that one. My dad is an alum of Villanova. I think he's like the only Jew to ever graduate from Villanova. And he used to produce Rolly Massimino's radio show. So even though I am a Temple fan and a Temple Athletic supporter, being a alum of the university, I grew up as a Villanova fan because, you know, Villanova's ever playing Stony Brook on Long Island, which happened a bunch. I remember seeing Mike Nardi as a kid for Villanova, and you had the Scotty Reynolds run up against Pitt that put them in the Final Four with that game winner. So I liked Villanova as a kid, but then when I go to Temple, you have to start hating Villanova just because of the rivalry and all that jazz. But that Villanova championship game against UNC, there are moments in sports that in the moment you're like, oh, you'll never forget that. And then something else happens that you forget it. And that Marcus Page acrobatic 3-point shot to tie the game, we were all like, wow, that's incredible. This game's going to go into overtime. And then you had some sweat on the court. There was a timeout. Daniel Shefu mops the court. And then you have Arche Diacono run the ball up the court. You flip it over to Jenkins. Jenkins, boom, for the championship. Ooh, onions, double sauteed, as Bill Raftery said. And that was just so cool. And that's got to be the best buzzer beater in the history of the tournament. The later one may be the most memorable just because of how long it is and how much it's replayed. But even Laettner said, he tweeted something at the time, and also helps when it's right at the expense of a UNC team, and Laettner with Duke. He's like, oh, I'm passing the crown to Chris Jenkins. But that Marcus Page acrobatic shot from 3, it's one of those moments in sports that no one really ever talks about that great shot because of what happened immediately afterwards. It's like, I forget who the wide receiver was, but in the Patriots-Seahawks Super Bowl, there's that great, crazy catch down the right sideline, fortuitous bounce, or even Malcolm Butler thought he just blew the Super Bowl. Little did he know he'd get back in a few plays later and boom, win the Super Bowl at the goal line. But there's moments in sports, even the Julio Jones catch with the Atlanta Falcons, like great catches in Super Bowls or great shots in a big game.
I think it was Jermaine Kearse.
Yeah, I think you may be right. But there's so many moments in sports where, like, for 5 seconds, you're like, wow, holy smokes, that's going to be iconic. And then it turns out to be just a blip in history because something else finds a way to usurp it just shortly after that.
Now, I understand your point. Listen, there's no bigger shot than a single shot to win the title in that moment. I get it. But there is something in my head, and maybe I'm wrong, when a game is tied and there's not that urgency that if you miss the shot, you lose. That game was tied at 74 when Chris Jenkins hit that shot.
Yeah,
You're
but,
right.
but hold on real quickly.
Yes.
I know what you're going to say. I'll let you finish your point. But remembering that game, Villanova for most of that game was in control. They were in control. And then you look up and you go, wow, UNC is about to get this to overtime and steal it. Like, if that game goes to overtime, I get what you're saying. But if that game goes to overtime, I would have thought that UNC would have won the game. So continue what you were saying, though.
No, but I mean, that's basically just my point. It's just that, the Leitner shot, they were down, right? So if he misses that shot, they're out. And you're right, it was only a regional game. It wasn't even the Final Four. Mm-hmm. But he misses that shot, their season's over. Chris Jenkins misses that shot, you go to overtime, and maybe the momentum was against them, but overtime is overtime. You never know what could happen. So, yes, it probably is the greatest shot. I mean, Michael Jordan had that shot, right? They were down in that game, Michael Jordan, when he hit that shot. It wasn't a buzzer beater, but it was at the very end of the game, and they ended up winning the game for them. There's something more of an urgency, and there's more something special about a shot that wins a game that you would have lost if you didn't make that shot.
So here's how I would say it. I still think the Leitner shot is more iconic. But I would say the Jenkins shot has to be the best buzzer beater that I've seen. Like, when you're looking for buzzer beaters in the build-up to maybe like the Final Four or something like that, like whenever they're getting set to really encapsulate the history of the tournament, for some reason, I still always think the Leitner shot is the one that I'm waiting for to see. And maybe it's because I wasn't alive when it happened, and you grow up.
Oh, man.
And the history of it.
That hurts.
It was 91, 92, right? Correct? I think it was 92.
Yeah.
And I was born in 94. Like, man. Stu, how old were you then?
Like 6 months.
Yeah, so I just think there's something when you're growing
12.
Up. You're a little punk. Santa as a 12-year-old.
I was getting ready for my bar mitzvah.
Santa as a 12-year-old probably was tough.
I had a beard.
But anyway, the point is, when you just see something for years and years and years and years, and you get told about something that you physically did not see, and I'm not trying to undershadow the importance of that moment, it makes it more iconic than when you live through it. Then it's not something that, like, the Leitner shot to me almost seems like unreal, and that it's something that's passed down and it didn't actually happen, right? Because just the way that you're told about it. But when you physically see something, even though it was for the championship, yeah, it's still great. It's the greatest buzzer beater I've ever seen, or I think the greatest buzzer beater in the history of the tournament. But it's just something that is a little bit different when you're told about something through history. Like, growing up as a kid, I was always like, did Babe Ruth actually exist? Because Babe Ruth was this, like, mythological creature with how many home runs that he did hit.
And you're right, because sport is so much about emotion and the moment. And if you're not there to experience that moment and to understand what it was like in that moment, you don't have that emotional connection to it. So, yeah, you have an emotional connection to the Chris Jenkins. You were there. You felt that energy. That
I wasn't in the building, to be clear.
No, but I'm saying is you were alive. You were watching it. Same thing for me with the Leitner. I remember it. Right? So,
you
were
me, 12, so like moments in your youth also carry through with you.
1994, Stephane Matteau OT winner for the Rangers in Game 7. I was flying around the room. I was jumping over couches and slamming into walls. Things that we remember, it's hard to be told, hey, you should know this because we're telling you this is important. It's different to be told something's important and something was great than to witness it and to understand how it felt to be in that moment.
Also, it's the weirdest reaction I've ever seen. Jay Wright, where he was just like, bang. And I see Jay Wright on my TV screen right now why I'm talking about Jay Wright and we're talking about the Nova thing. And then he walks over to Roy Williams and just shakes his hand. And that was his first national championship. This wasn't national championship number 2. So it's like, you haven't won one yet. And that was your reaction. And remember, Jay Wright was not popular in Philadelphia for a while. Like, everyone liked Jay Wright, but for a while they had those early exits, first weekend exits in the tournament, couldn't get to the second. A lot of people started to get on Jay Wright, and then he makes Villanova into a blue blood. But if I was a coach of a team that won a championship on a buzzer beater, like, there was more emotion from the late, great Rolly Massimino in that moment in the stands than there was Jay Wright, I would be doing like the Macarena. I would get on the floor and do the worm. Like, I would be insufferable if I was the coach of a team that won a championship at a buzzer beater. Like, it wasn't a long build-up, right? You're smoking, you're blowing the brakes off a team. Like you're up 20 and and then it's like, okay, the game ends. All right, you celebrate, you go shake hands. This was you're winning, about to lose, about to go to overtime, and you're probably going to lose, and then boom, you get the buzzer beater in regulation.
I mean, was he in shock maybe? Maybe it was like such a shock to his system that he didn't even know how to react.
He explained it. He said he's been on the side of winning and losing. And he was like, yes, I was elated for my guys, but there's sometimes just like luck involved where you just throw your hands up in the air and you're like, I could have easily just as lost that game, and you know the other side of it. So that's why he was doing that. Still, classy guy, classy answer.
Yeah, now
I'm doing the worm if my team wins a championship.
Yeah, let's go back to that. I picked up on that earlier, and I need to get back. What is it going to take for us to get you to do the worm or to attempt to do the worm?
Rangers Stanley Cup.
For you to do the worm.
Yes, Rangers Stanley Cup.
And it could happen this year.
My football team has won more than anyone could have ever dreamt of. My baseball team, they got no shot this year. But hockey, why I want to see the Rangers win the Stanley Cup so badly is that is the one sport my father and I root for the same team. And this is not just, like a lot of other frauds. The playoffs are here, so I'm going to start watching hockey. From game 1 to the last game of the season, I have a group text. It's my uncle, it is my father, it's my brother-in-law, and it's I. And every game, ding, 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 ding. I actually had to tell my uncle to shut up this year in the preseason because he was bitching about the results in the preseason. I'm like, we can't start this text this year in the preseason. So that would be so cool because it's the one sport and the one team that I share a rooting interest in with my father and then also my uncle.
That's another. Let's get into that. Like, I feel like as a kid, whatever your dad roots for is like that's your team. So the fact that you root for different teams than your dad, and you guys are both big sports fans, was this like you trolling your dad?
No.
Was this you trying to be rebellious against your dad?
No.
Like, how did it become to a point where you started liking teams that were either different and maybe at the same time rivals to your dad? That's crazy.
So it had nothing to do with that. My dad worked on Sundays, and my next door neighbor was my uncle. And my uncle's from Framingham, Massachusetts, was a longtime Patriot season ticket holder. And his closest friend growing up ended up marrying Andre Tippett, this very nice lady, Rhonda, who married Andre Tippett. So that was just, I grew up as a Patriot fan. Had nothing to do with like, bleep my dad, blah, blah, blah. No, he just worked on Sundays and I didn't watch football with him. I watched football with my uncle. Baseball, I don't think my dad really had a team. My dad was a catcher. My dad was a very good catcher. And his favorite player was Carl Yastrzemski. So my dad he'd take me to a bunch of Met games. I always thought growing up as a kid, my dad was a Met fan. He kind of like Met Yankee. He did a lot of business with the Yankees. So it was more business with baseball. So there was no really team that my dad had. And it was just like the NBA, my dad didn't really care for the NBA. So it was just hockey for some reason. That's my dad's favorite sport. It's my dad's favorite team are the Rangers. And for whatever the reasons were, he just made sure that I was a Ranger fan. And I went to some Villanova games, but you're living in New York and, you rooted for Villanova. It's how many times do they really end up coming to Long Island? It was like here or there, Stony Brook and things like that. So there's the answer on that. Anyway, it is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a time out. We will come on back, and we'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We will do a news brief.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
So, just real quickly, getting back to our iconic buzzer beater conversation, I guess when you get set for the Final Four and they do one of those montages, the three things that you will always see will be the Leitner buzzer beater against Kentucky, the Chris Jenkins buzzer beater to win the national championship game, and then the Lorenzo Charles incredible, I guess, tip-in, however you want to refer to it, where you then have the Jim Valvano moment. They really don't even see the Lorenzo Charles part of it anymore. It's really just Jimmy V running around right at half court which is such an iconic moment as well. But Samter, if you had to go back and rank those three, how do you rank them when you had NC State taking care of Phi Slamma Jamma, you had Jenkins with the shot to beat UNC, and then Leitner's shot to take care of business up against Pitino's Kentucky squad?
Now, are we talking like quality of shot or just most memorable?
Let's do most memorable first, and then we'll do quality of shot.
Okay.
Go most memorable. Go 3-1, 3. It's weird to say any of these are the worst.
I know.
And then 1 being the best.
3-1. I'm going Jenkins 3, NC State 2, Leitner 1.
Okay, and then the other way?
And then the other way, I think when you're talking about like the most impressive, honestly, I think it's the same thing. I go Leitner 1, NC State 2, Jenkins 3. The thing about Jenkins that was great that it was kind of a long distance shot. It was like an NBA 3, maybe a little bit beyond the NBA line, but like we've gotten so used to the long threes that it doesn't really stand out that much. Like the NC State play was like an epic air ball, caught, dunked, with time expiring, Valvano running around. It's just like a different moment. And Leitner was it's just historic. It meant so much to the sport. It really put college basketball on a different level. And Duke was we go back even today, we look back at those Duke teams, Coach K, Leitner, Grant Hill, Thomas Hill, Bobby Hurley, those Duke teams, the UNLV teams that were like their nemesis for a while. I mean, that's kind of like the apex of college basketball.
What was better, though, the pass or the shot?
Oh, man.
Because the pass is so good.
I mean, that's like 60 feet in the air, on target, right? Like high, just so only Leitner could get it in that perfect catching spot. I mean, probably the pass is better than the shot.
Right, which is crazy. And you just said that's the best shot, but then the pass was even better.
The play in general. And then, I mean, honestly, like the best shot is probably the Bryce Drew. The pass tip right to Bryce Drew into the three-pointer, into the dive onto the floor. That was probably the most impressive shot.
Now, it pales into comparison.
Well, maybe the Jalen Suggs, maybe the best shot.
Yeah, from half court. So it pales into comparison because it just didn't mean as much. But the R.J. Hunter shot,
when his dad fell off
when his dad was hurt and just flies off the chair. One of my all-time favorite moments. I think the dad now, Ron Hunter, is the coach of Tulane, I want to say. But that was, he's still the coach of, I just want to make sure he didn't get fired recently or anything like that. But he's now the coach of Tulane, but that's when he was at Georgia State. When you get into those montages, they always show that just because the dad's reaction is so great. Like, don't get me wrong. The Lorenzo Charles play is unbelievable. But the Valvano reaction is what always gets replayed. Like, the Hunter shot was great, but it's always right away zooming into the dad falling out of the chair. So, anyway, let's stop teasing it. Let's get to it. We go to a news brief.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
All right, let's start it off with Aaron Donald, 10 years in the NFL, and he made sure to list all of his accomplishments when issuing why he is retiring.
I'm complete. I'm full. I think the passion to play the game is no longer there for me. I will always love football, but to think about going through another camp and another 17 season, I just don't got the urge to want to push myself to do that no more. I'm burned out. You know, if anything, the best way to say it, I'm full, I'm complete. I'm satisfied with what I was able to do in 10 years, and I think it's time for me to, at 32 years old, to retire from football and jump into the next step of my career in my life, and that's time to move on.
10 years in the NFL, 10 Pro Bowls, 8-time a first-team All-Pro, a Super Bowl champion, a Rookie of the Year, and a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. What are we laughing about, by the way?
I'm laughing because it's absurd. What
it's
you just
stupid.
said, the stats.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 and 8 out of 10 is nuts.
I'm like, what did I just say?
No, it's absurd.
I was like one of those moments you're on the stage giving a speech and you see someone laugh and you're like, my pants still on? Everything's still good here? I'm like, what did I just say that didn't come out the right way?
You got something in your nose, buddy.
Oh, do I? Let me just come here.
Yeah. No, thank you.
I'll have to clean my nose out on you. That would be nice. Let's go to Monty Ossenfort, the general manager of the Arizona Cardinals. He is open to trading the number 4 pick.
Ultimately, there's still a lot of unknown, and really there will be until we're on the clock. It'll be a big neon sign that says open, and we'll. I don't like it blinking. That kind of messes with my eyes. But yeah, we're always going to be listening. I think we'll always have the conversation. We may not get to a point where the deal makes sense, whether it's at 4 or anywhere we're picking, but we're always going to have the conversation. And if it makes sense and if it's attractive to building our team, and then it's something that we'll certainly consider no matter where we're at in the draft.
I actually may say that Monty Ossenfort has the most important pick of this draft. And this is why. We know the Bears are taking Caleb Williams at 1. For 2 and 3, as long as the information or the speculation is true, and I'm buying in that both the Commanders and Patriots take a quarterback, that 4th pick becomes so valuable. Because you could make the case where you go get 3 number 1 picks from maybe like a team like Minnesota trying to get another quarterback, or you could get a franchise-changing player in a Marvin Harrison Jr. that could make sure that the investment that you gave to Kyler Murray ends up being met and ends up being a positive one when you could take a Marvin Harrison Jr. and pair him up with your young quarterback. Maybe importance on I think that's the most intriguing pick of the draft. So let's go to Mike Florio on the What the Football with Amy Trask and Susie Schuster. That's the name of the show?
Apparently.
Do they call it the WTF show?
There you go.
Here is Mike Florio on Fields and Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh.
I think the Steelers have made him the commitment that he's QB1. But once you start playing the games, everything can change. And if he struggles, it will change. And even though they've set this up as Wilson 1 and Fields 2, and I firmly believe, and I have done a little digging here, I think the new offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, Arthur Smith, is already drawing up some plays where you have both guys on the field at the same time. So I think that, yes, it's Russell Wilson, but he's got to live up to that. And if he fails, if he falters, if he stumbles at all, there's going to be a ton of pressure. I mean, Russell Wilson wanted to be in Pittsburgh, and as long as you're playing well in Pittsburgh, they love you. The minute you struggle, especially if you've got a number 2 who's there, and we don't know what he can be, and the season is slipping away 1 loss at a time, there's going to be a ton of noise. If it's not going well, it's not going to go well for Russell Wilson.
That's the biggest thing. This is Russ's job until Russ doesn't hold up his end of the bargain. Because in reality, Russell Wilson's only getting paid $1.5 million from the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. That's nothing. Literally nothing for a quarterback. Like, good backups make $10, $15 million sometimes on an NFL roster. He is supposed to be the star, and he's getting paid $1.5 million. They struggle, he struggles, they will go to eventually Justin Fields at some point. I just don't think Russell Wilson's going to struggle enough where Justin Fields actually gets on the field. Here is John Calipari. Coach Cal joined Jim Rome yesterday on CBS Sports Radio on the draw for Kentucky.
You don't come to Kentucky for NIL. Now, you're going to be well taken care of. I just told you the managers have NIL.
Yeah, right.
You're going to do more than anywhere else. But if you come here for, what are you thinking about? We have guys in the NBA, 14 guys on second deals, max deals. We have guys that have made over $4 billion right now, and guys haven't gotten their second deal yet. It may be $6 billion. You come here to prepare yourself for the rest of your life, and it is not going to be easy, and you're not going to be guaranteed anything. Oh, you start, and I'll run every play for you, and you'll shoot 20 balls a game. No.
You don't tell them that, Cal.
In here and fight. You got to fight. And you got to take what you want, and you got to carve your way out. You ready for this? And you got to be a great teammate. You learn to be a great. You got to share. You can't be. It's not about you. And you go to that league, and you're a bad teammate, you'll get traded. They don't want you in here. Pat Riley said the best thing I can say about your guys in the league, they're all great teammates, and that made me feel great.
I love Coach Cal. I sometimes on an island with this, I've always loved him as a coach. And you hear him in interviews. Some people think he's a blowhard. I absolutely love John Calipari. I could listen to him speak all day. Let's hear one more from him on the Jim Rome Show. You do have Kentucky later today going up against Oakland. That will be at 7:10 p.m. Eastern time on CBS. That game is in Pittsburgh, by the way. And this is John Calipari on the potential expansion of the NCAA tournament.
I hope it stays where it is. You know, I know people get mad. They get mad at the committee. You won't believe this. I've been mad at that committee a few times. But you may be mad because of your seed. But it doesn't matter who the committee is. We're all going to be upset. It's part of the NCAA tournament, not getting in. And so it's part of what it is. Let's keep it. It's too good a thing. It's the event. Like, you could tell I'm excited. And I'll say everybody that's in this thing, I would say they'd say the same thing. Keep it where it is. Don't mess with something that's great. And the committee literally don't care. Whoever's on it's going to get the same grief that this group got, the last group got. It's what it is. No science to this. You're going to make some mistakes.
I'm 100% with him. I'm not fixing something that isn't broken. I understand Virginia getting in was a disgrace, but that doesn't mean I need to start adding more teams to the NCAA tournament. I know Long Beach State did lose today, but it's crazy that they were even in the NCAA tournament. And if I would have told you before the year that Long Beach State would have made the NCAA tournament, you wouldn't have thought that their coach Dan Munson would have been fired, but that was the case, and he knew the last few days and few weeks that he was not going to be returning. Here is the Long Beach coach on getting fired right before their game today, which ended up losing 85-65 to Arizona.
It's like you guys see the Seinfeld when George Costanza was trying to get fired and couldn't lose his job and still going to work every day, and that's me. I'm a Seinfeld episode going on right now in real life.
That's amazing. That's great. He's 100% right. It is like a Seinfeld episode. Let's go to JB Bickerstaff, the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, on the dangers of gambling in sports.
I personally have had my own instances with, some of the sports gamblers where, they got my telephone number and were sending me crazy messages about, where I live and my kids and all that stuff. So it is a dangerous game and a fine line that we're walking. And I think that, we really have to be careful, with how close we let it get to the game and the security of the people who are involved in it, because there's no doubt about it that it's crossed the line. The amount of times where I'm standing up there and we may have a 10-point lead and the spread is 11 and people are yelling at me to leave the guys in so that we can cover the spread. Like, it's ridiculous. I mean, it is something that I believe has gone too far.
So I'm conflicted on this. I'm not saying he's lying, because I do believe that, right, you have people yelling at you and saying disgusting things and contacting you if they lose a bet. But I just don't know what any sports league could do. They're not going to start hating money. It's not like they're going to not take the money that they get from these gambling leagues. It's fascinating, Samter, but I don't think there's anything that could be done. And even if let's say the leagues don't endorse gambling anymore, and let's say they don't have all these deals with all these partners, people are still going to gamble. Like, we've already opened up Pandora's box. All right? You will be able to find a Shohei Ohtani bookie or someone like that and go back to how it was done in the old days. I get to say that now. So I don't think there's any way to kind of patch this back up, nor do I actually think there needs to be.
Yeah, I think, like you said, once you open the box, you can't get it back in. And even if you could, there's so much money that so many people's jobs and livelihoods revolve around it. It's just not sustainable. The problem is going to be what happens when we do get another Black Sox scandal. What happens when a Tim Donaghy does throw an important game? What happens when Ohtani is actually gambling on baseball or whatever it is?
Suspensions. Calvin Ridley, suspensions.
Not just suspensions. We're going to see people's faith in sports go out the window. We're going to see people losing interest in sports because now the integrity is gone. This is why Pete Rose got such a big penalty. This is why the Black Sox were banned forever, because you have to protect the integrity above anything else.
Let's go last one. Coach Prime on the report he doesn't go on visits.
There's an article that came out that said I don't go on visits. Okay. My approach, it's totally different than many coaches' approach. I'm a businessman as well, so I try to save our university money every darn chance I get. Let's just say I'm going to Florida and I'm visiting whatever school, IMG. You don't think those coaches are going to be a little upset if I don't come by the school down the street? You don't think it's going to be pandemonium if I'm going to get naysayed if I don't go another 45 minutes? Then if I go to that one, then I go, well, I didn't come to that school. Now the coach is mad, so he's not going to let the kid come because he's mad because I chose that, go to that school over that school. See, other coaches, they could do that, but I can't. I really, truly, in all my heart, believe that parents don't want me at their house. They want to come see my house. They want to see how I live, how I get down.
First and foremost, let me just say I'm a big believer of Coach Prime. But that's stupid. Like, you're going to be concerned that another school is annoyed that you didn't go visit the kid? The kid could still make the decision if you offer him the right NIL money to still go to your school. So I didn't get any of that. And I think Saban, who could have got away with not going to home visits, he still went to like all these home visits. You see the videos. I understand hiring a staff and have them doing a lot of the recruiting work. There's going to be big enough recruits or eventually you're going to have to go on to their turf or you're not going to get them. Because there's an appeal. There's definitely an attraction to playing for Coach Prime, but eventually that's going to wear off a little bit. And just because you have a mansion somewhere, like if I'm a high school kid, yeah, it'd be cool to go to your house, but it'd be a lot cooler if you came to my childhood home instead. So that's a news brief. By the way, we do have a very controversial topic, and there is some breaking news about it. So, Stu, quickly fire off that sounder.
We have breaking news on the Zach Gelb Show.
According to Adam Schefter, the NFL is leaving the tush push as a legal play for the 2024 season. NFL executive Troy Vincent said today that there will not be any proposal presented this offseason to ban it for the next season. The Eagles, Vincent said on a conference call, do it well. So the NFL is not banning the tush push, as a lot of people thought was going to be the case. So if you want to try to stop it in 2024, good luck. And also, if you can't run it effectively, then I guess not everybody could do it as easy as people think it is. So no tush push going away. The NFL is a fan of the tush push. We'll come on back. It is a Thursday. We'll do a Zach Gelb Show PSA to wrap up the show on the other side. Update time first, though. Here he is, the Act Man. Didn't give any of the scores for you. Is that fine?
Thank you. Yes, indeed.
With all the latest NCAA tournament scores, here he is, my guy, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
But he did give some breaking news, but that's all right. NCAA action already. 1 6th seed has gone down. Another is in big trouble as Oregon leads South Carolina 57-40 with 12 and a half minutes left in the second half. The other big seed to fall earlier today was BYU, stunned by Duquesne 71-67. Duke's making their first appearance in the tournament since 77, their first tourney victory since 1969. Also right now, Nevada leads Dayton at the half 34-25. These are all finals from earlier today. Michigan State moves on, defeating Mississippi State 69-51. Arizona crushes Long Beach State 85-65, ending Dan Munson's run. North Carolina, an easy winner over Wagner, 90-62, and it is now a final. Illinois advances after a slow start. The Fighting Illini ramped it up in the second half, defeating Morehead State 84-69 behind 26 from Terrence Shannon Jr. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Looking for CBS Sports Radio Online, Maggie? Your favorite hosts and the best sports content and entertainment are available 24/7 on social media and YouTube.
And in the palm of your hand, pearl off with the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Rock your body. Hey, this is Howie.
And this is Nick.
From the
Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. It's time to end the show out in style on a Thursday. Stu, let's get to a Zach Gelb Show PSA.
It's a Thursday. What do you have to say? It's the weekly Zach Gelb Show PSA.
Who's with me? Let's go! Come on!
So yesterday I had to get in here rather early. So I didn't do anything for breakfast. And I said, all right, I'll get something good for lunch. But I was trying to still be healthy. So I went right across the street to this place called Westville. And I got a Westville Cobb salad with no avocado because I'm allergic to avocado. I can't digest avocado.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, like I could have a scoop of guacamole, but anything after that, I am throwing up and I need to go to the bathroom and it's just an ugly scene. So I avoid avocado.
Interesting.
Avocado and mushrooms. Those are the two things that my body just does not allow me to digest. So I get my salad. They charge you like $16.50 for a salad, by the way. So it's a good amount of money for a salad. And remember, I phoned in the order. I walked to the place, which is only a block away. I pick up the salad, and they go, you want to pay cash or credit? So I go, I have cash on me today. One of the few days I was carrying cash. They go, oh, then you have to go to the bar. I'm like, all right, I'll just use my credit card. So I put the credit card in, and right away, it's 20% tip. Like, automatically goes to 20, and they're like, confirm this. And then I put a 0% tip. And I always tip if there is a service that needs tipping. But when I call in the order and pick up the order, there's no delivery. This is not, I'm sitting at a table for 2 hours, stuffing my fat face. I don't even think that should be an option. So my PSA is, if you are a place that is having a takeout service, do not ask or assume your customer is going to tip, because there's no service being done for me to tip. Taxis, Ubers, tip. You get a haircut, tip. You sit down at a restaurant, tip. But when you are picking up food and no one has done anything of any service, I don't think the tip is necessary. I know Samter used to be in the food business, so he probably hates my guts for this.
No, I mean, I've always kind of waffled back and forth with the takeout food tip. I'll usually give like a couple dollars.
20% though.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't tip 20%. And don't force me into a tip either. Don't put it on the bill and then make me have to like decline it afterwards. But like, I'll usually drop a couple bucks. But even when I worked in the food service industry, I never expected a tip for boxing up the order and then just handing it to you in a plastic bag. But, you know, to each their own, I kind of throw a few bucks here or there. My PSA today goes back to a conversation that we were having earlier about the greatest shot of all time or whatever in college basketball. And it made me think, when you said that you weren't born when the Leitner shot happened, it really bothers me when I hear people talking MJ versus LeBron, but they weren't alive to watch MJ. Or they're saying, oh, well, Bill Russell can't hold the candle to Shaq or to any of these players. But they weren't alive to watch Bill Russell. Okay. Or talk about Willie Mays or Ted Williams or Mickey Mantle. If you weren't alive to watch them play live and to see what they could do on a day-to-day basis, like you're able to do and watch guys live now, then you can't compare them. Or if you are going to try to compare them statistically or based on...
Alrighty, Christopher Mad Dog Santa. Okay, who am I now? JJ Redick? You can't tell me about some of the guys that I didn't see? You didn't watch them. You watched them on YouTube. Yes. YouTube.
You can make an educated guess. You can make an educated opinion, but you can't intelligently argue
ever heard of him?
Somebody who is there and watched both. If you're talking to your parent or a grandparent or a guy like Christopher Mad Dog Russo who got to watch both Willie Mays and Mike Trout play, you can't intelligently argue with him and tell him that he's wrong because he got to see both guys play, not just from clips, not just from highlights, not just from stats, not just from a Hall of Fame or going to see a plaque, but actually watching them play on a day in and day out basis.
Harmon Killebrew?
That's
Ring
exactly
a bell? Hello?
it. So don't tell me you know more about sports when I saw more than you ever got to witness.
Was that a shot at me?
Not you, the general you.
I was going to say. Let's remember what show you're working on here. It says it right there. It says the Zach Gelb show.
My eyesight is bad because I'm old. Michael Samter show?
If we weren't on camera, I would tell you to read a certain signal, but I can't give you that signal right now.
Are you saying I'm number one, Zach? Is that what's happening there?
I would say read
between the lines?
Yeah, I know that I can't help myself. I don't want to flip off anybody.
1, 2, 3, read between the lines.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
So mine's easy. I took 2 flights over the past week, and this is just an evergreen flying. I feel like this could be the PSA almost every week. If you're sitting in the back half of the plane, when you are deboarding the plane, please just sit down. Wait till you are ready to, people get up when they're in the last row. What are you getting up for? You're not going anywhere. This is going to take 10 minutes, 15, 20. You're not going anywhere. You standing up and blocking people who are in front of you trying to get out, that's not going to help speed up the process. It's going to slow it down.
Last time I was on a plane, I almost saw a fight over this. Because someone got up, their bag was in the seat behind them in the overhead bin. They went to go get up, and they were in this person's personal space, right up in there. And they're grabbing for the bag, so you could use your mind what's in the person's face, and the person's just screaming, "You're in my personal space!" And I've never seen a fight on the airplane. I've only seen fights on the airplane online. Right? You see that all the time now, and I go, oh, are they ready to throw down? I have my camera out, ready to go. I was going to get a viral moment, but the person just didn't even say anything and just kind of backed away. So, all righty, that concludes the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Big thanks to Clay Harbor joining us in the studio. Good to have Stu back. Great to see Samter, that old man Samter, lecturing all of us and telling us we can't talk about things and
Back
everything.
In my day.
Jeez. All righty. And we'll be back tomorrow. Recap all the madness from day one of the NCAA tournament. Big thanks to each and every one of you for tuning into the show. I'll give you the scores just real quickly. The game's still in play. 6:57 left in the game. Oregon 67, South Carolina 54, Nevada up 34-25 against Dayton at halftime still. We'll talk mañana, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.